I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council special meeting for May 22nd. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Anderson. Here. Baldwin.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Gardner.
Here.
Lindsay.
Here.
Here.
White.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Any agenda changes? All right. Any guest speakers this evening? All right. And public comment on agenda items only. If anybody in the audience would like to make public comment on agenda items only. Anyone in the room? Anyone online? All right.
Mr. Fox.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Dan.
Dan Fox, City of Saugatuck. I just wanted to throw something out there that struck me. I mean, relates to the search and what have you, and hopefully without disrespecting any of the candidates. When we started this, or near the beginning of it, we were told we were going to see, or you all were going to see 5 candidates. That ended up being 4. It's now 3, one of whom currently serves the city as interim city manager and does a good job. But I wonder if, and maybe it struck some of you, that perhaps this search was or is not as comprehensive as it might have been this time, or for that matter, at some future time. And in light of that, I would at least ask you to at least consider, again, without disrespecting any of the candidates, the few candidates left, restarting the search a second time, probably with a different search consultant, maybe Michigan Municipal League, I don't know, maybe with a subcommittee of the council, I'm not sure. I just, at the end of this, you want to look citizens in the eye and say, we got the best city manager possible, not just best city manager who happened to come to us in this first kind of foreshortened round. Anyway, that's it. It's a suggestion, not any more wine than my usual wines.
All right,
Thanks.
Dan, thank you. Anyone else online who'd like to speak? All right, then we'll move on to our city manager interviews. Frank, would you like to say anything first before we get started? And if you can introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thank you. Frank Walsh with Walsh Municipal Services. Good to see all of you. Would you like me to give a little overview of where we've
That'd
been?
be great.
Yeah. So we did a exhaustive search in Michigan and also in the Midwest through a number of sources. We had 48 applicants come forward. I will tell you that from the list that we had before you, 2 of the candidates that you looked at in the last 2 weeks have become employed at different organizations. So we had a very strong list. It's 3 of them if you add Mr. Eggleston, who just got employment in this last week. 2 of the candidates that you looked at chose not to interview. Both have been hired by other organizations. So you had a strong list before you. You still have a strong list tonight or this afternoon, and we'll see where things go and where we end up. But Saugatuck drew a very good list. There's a lot of competition out there right now. And I'm proud of the 3 candidates that are before you tonight. We had 4 or 5, but things happen along the way. There are lots of openings in Michigan. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing how we end up after the interviews.
All right, Frank, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. All right, if we could have Mr. Will Joseph, please come up here. We welcome you tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Mayor Stanton and the city council, thank you so much for having me. Just an honor to be asked to be here, and I look forward to answering your questions and discussing my qualifications and experience for the city manager role here.
All right, thank you so much. And
Thank
we
you.
just have a list of questions that we'll go through, and each of our council members will be asking those of you. And if you need water or anything, just let us know, but we are here for that. But I'll just start with the first question, if I could. We just appreciate your time and energy of getting to know our community and being with us today. If you could just take 2 to 3 minutes to talk about yourself, both personally and professionally, and just give us a little bit of an overview.
Yeah, I think I've spent most of my adult life working, advocating, volunteering, and being involved in local government. I started when I was in college at CMU in Mount Pleasant. I was a seasonal maintenance worker for the water department for what ended up being nearly a year and a half of time. During that time, I worked on water distribution and secured a waters operator's license. From there, I ended up appointed to the Planning Commission in Mount Pleasant. I served nearly a year and a half on the Planning Commission there and oversaw dozens of site plans and special use permits. And actually, we went through the process of rewriting our zoning ordinance to reflect a more character-based code. I moved on from the Planning Commission because I was elected to the City Commission, where I served 4 years on the City Commission, and I spent my last 3 as the mayor of Mount Pleasant and was appointed by my peers. From there, I really knew that I wanted to spend my career in local government. And I was fortunate enough to be appointed the village manager in Paw Paw, Michigan, and served there for 2 years. And that kind of sums up my, I guess, professional experience. I have a bachelor's of science in political science and mathematics from Central Michigan University. In my free time, I love being outdoors. I love to go hiking, swimming. I have many friends who are musicians, and so I spend quite a bit of time going to concerts and just hanging out with friends and family. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you
course.
very much. My name's Helen. Very nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Not every decision you make turns out as planned. Sometimes there's disappointment along the way. Please share with us a time when a project you were involved in did not yield the results you had hoped for, and what did you learn from the process?
Sure. I think a good example of this for me is when I was a fairly new manager in Paw Paw, they have a special assessment for police services. And we, the council and the staff, trying to increase our staffing levels. We're trying to add a police officer to our staff. And so we had to go through the process of notifying all of our residents and making the case for raising that millage from 2 mills to 3 mills. And as a newer manager, I maybe got caught up in my silo a little bit and ended up sending, the public notices required, but it was mostly just legal jargon and, notice like, hey, there's a public hearing, which a lot of residents read and they're like, I don't know what this means. And it sounds like you're increasing my taxes, which they were right. So we fielded a lot of phone calls at Village Hall. I had council members who were, kind of like, hey, what's going on? And the people are confused. And so we had to kind of step back and say, hey, our communication strategy was incomplete here. And so we put together another mailer, and we had a second public hearing, which really gave out a lot more reasoning of, hey, why do we need an extra police officer? Why do we feel this extra mill is necessary to make sure that happens? And what the individual impact would be on a sample residence or a business owner. After that happened, and we had a very full public hearing where myself and my police chief did a lot of explaining of where we got to and why we were doing this. We got a lot of acceptance in the community. They were it's a very strongly supportive community of public safety. And so obviously when you're raising taxes, not everyone's gonna be happy. So we certainly got still some complaints. But the success, I think, is that with that special assessment, you have to go back every year to renew that. And so in the second year, we kept it at 3 mills. We did a similar information sheet with our public notices, and complaints were basically eliminated. And so I count that as an oops on my part, but a success in the end.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you, Russ.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. It's nice to meet you, Will.
Thank you.
You've already started to do this, but I would suggest, at least for my helping to assess the candidates, answer the question in this way, use a situation, use a task, action, and result, so I can assess the answer to the question. You're already starting to do that, so I would just kind of put that in context.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You're
for that
welcome.
guidance.
The city of Saugatuck is looking for a leader who will serve our community with exemplary leadership. Please share a time in the past 3 years that you went above and beyond to provide excellent leadership in your current position.
Sure. I think a good example of this for me is we had an applicant for what would have been a home for male persons who were going to be trying to be in recovery, and it was going to be adjacent to a neighborhood. Although the specific property was properly zoned for their use, it did fall under a special use permit. And so we had to, go through that process with our planning commission. And as you might have guessed, that was a contentious public hearing process for many of the neighbors who had concerns about this home being, in their backyard. And during that time, I took I think the leadership position of being able to properly inform the residents of the process, what the status of the application was, and then also being responsive to the applicant and understanding like, these are the things that, the planning commission would like to see. These are the letters and the communications that we're receiving from the community, and also making sure that they understood the process. We did have a very contentious hearing where we had, people arguing back and forth. And I had to, kind of stick my neck out and help our planning commission navigate that process and make sure that the meeting was, the decorum was as professional as possible. A lot of people blame the village for sort of, being responsible for this application, and that, that it was necessarily our policy decision. And I certainly, take responsibility for following protocol of what we had to do and following policy. But I wasn't going to fight them on that, hey, this is exactly what we want or don't want. And so I, obviously received criticism for some of that, but I think that in the end, all parties, thought that I presented a fair and impartial case for what they were going to, make a decision on. And I guess that's an example of me taking a leadership role.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
A resident just came into your office and confronted you with an unusually high water bill. Their monthly bill was just over $500. In reviewing their previous 2 years' water bills, you note that the largest monthly bill they received was $180. Please share with us the steps you would take in considering their request to lower their bill from $500 to $180.
I think the first step is to review what the city's policies are when it comes to possible corrections or reductions in a water bill. I think different municipalities take a different approach. When I've encountered similar situations, and sometimes you have to ask the property owner, well, has there been something going on different with your usage? Did you, start watering a lot of, grass or flowers, or did you put a pool in? Because oftentimes I think when you see surprises in a water bill like that, typically there's a problem. They have a leak somewhere, or they have a running toilet that maybe they're not aware of. And so I would go through probably all of those options to make sure that we've checked our boxes and try to see if, that was the cause of the spike in the water bill. My experience is that water meters typically slow down, they don't speed up. And although we would certainly make an effort to make sure that the meter was, properly working. But I think that, making the resident understand that even a small leak can cause a much larger bill, even though it might be almost unnoticeable in real time. And then, if that, depending on the city's policies, if that comes to a council decision, or if it's an administrative decision, would certainly inform the council of, what happened, and go from there.
All right, thank you. Logan?
Yes. Well, hi. Saugatuck is a special place. Our community is well known throughout the state and throughout the Midwest as an example of pure Michigan. While we certainly benefit greatly from tourism, our community desires to maintain our small town charm. What is your vision on how our community can promote tourism and still maintain our lovely haven we call home?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to Frank before the meeting, and I think a council member and your clerk, and Saugatuck really is paradise, and today is a fine example of that. 70 degrees and a light breeze makes it pretty special place. I think that the city of Saugatuck has a very well-established brand. And it's a place that people just, when you come here, you feel how special it is. You feel it's just different than really many other coastal communities, especially in Michigan, and I'm sure around the world. My vision for keeping that identity would be to improve, make sure that you improve upon your infrastructure to keep quality of life amenities as high, and if you can increase them, all the better. I think that's, a success to your specialty retail that you have across town. And also the natural features in town are, I think, part of the big draw here. And so working hard to make sure that you protect your natural resources, and being able to fund and make sure that people can come here, travel and recreate safely, whether it be at Oval Beach or Bald Head or just here in the downtown. So.
Thank you. Gregory?
Oh, I'm glad I got this question. Providing excellent customer service is critical in local government. We take pride in responding to our customers. Can you please share a time where you were able to solve a challenging citizen customer concern using excellent personal skills? You'll need a lot of that around here.
Well, I would pride myself on being someone who takes those issues very seriously, and also somewhat personally, I find great satisfaction in making sure that people are at least presented with the proper solutions that they can to solve their problem. And if the city can have a role in that, even better. I had a situation in Paw Paw where I had a resident who she had an old neon sign in her travel business that had been around for 50 years. And Paw Paw is a public utility, which means we provide the electric distribution system, much like a water and sewer system you see in many other municipalities. They had some issues before I was there where the power had some fluctuations, and when she turned in the claim to her insurance company, they basically blamed the sign dying on those power fluctuations. And the root cause of that was because of our provider had maintenance that they had not done properly or were behind on. And so once they did their maintenance, that solved those issues. Unfortunately for her sign, it was not saved. But she was very adamant that the village should reimburse her for her sign and that we were liable. And I took that step to take it to our insurance company and say, hey, like, is there something we can do for her? This is a business in our downtown business district that's been valued for a long time. And unfortunately, the insurance company said, well, no, you have, the village has governmental immunity. You really should not settle or, provide some sort of cash payment to her. And as you might imagine, she was still not very happy with that answer. And I certainly wasn't pleased to have to give her that answer. And ultimately, I think we found a solution with her is when I went down to her business, talked to her in person, and just, had a conversation and really explained where we were. And I gave her the option of applying for a DDA grant within the village that provides small loans to businesses who are trying to do, typically like facade improvements. I thought the sign could potentially fit within that requirement, and I, was willing to help her through that application process. And I was a member of that DDA board as just, non-voting staff member, but so I would literally be there from start to finish through that process. And, I don't think she took me up on it, but, she was much more pleased at the situation, at least, that I gave her an opportunity to fix her problem. And I think, meeting her in person and seeing, things firsthand really made the difference.
That's great. Scott?
Thanks for being here, William.
Of course.
We also have some experience with neon signs. The question though is, as we review your resume, we note several excellent accomplishments. Please describe two of your proudest professional accomplishments.
Sure. I think the first one that comes to mind for me, during the later part of my time in, the Village of Paw Paw, we were trying to reduce our electric distribution costs. Part of when you get an electric bill is capacity and, a distribution charge on every electric bill that you get. And for the village, that's no different. We had to pay for those charges, and a way to be able to reduce that was to be able to find a solution where we could produce our own power or partner with another public utility in some sort of power generation project. And sort of the stars aligned where the council was interested in in those ideas. And then we worked with our public power agency to get a developer to do a solar farm on our wastewater treatment plant. We have a lagoon system, so we have kind of a lot of fields around that lagoon system that were open, and we own the property. And that project, I'm happy to say that we negotiated an easement and a power purchase agreement during my last weeks in Paw Paw. And that will help Paw Paw not only reduce their costs, but also meet state regulations on green energy initiatives for the next several decades at least.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but what is it about the city of Saugatuck that drew you to apply to serve as our city manager?
Yeah, I think Saugatuck is just one of the prides of Michigan. I grew up in Michigan, and I lived actually not too far from here for several years when I was working in Paw Paw. This is an excellent community, and to be honest, I'm just honored to, have the opportunity to be here. I think that if people could model themselves after the city here, they would be doing a lot of things right. You've got great retail, you've got very great placemaking, your finances are in great order. And then you also have a natural aesthetic that is basically beyond, what people really experience in other areas. And so I think this is an excellent community. I would be honored to be appointed here and to live and work here for a long time. And I think if anyone really, if you press anyone, I think they would have the same answer. And so for me, the decision to apply was a very easy one. Maybe only intimidated by the idea that there would be a lot of competition. But I couldn't say enough good things about your city.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Yep.
Thank you. I agree with all those things about the city. What's the most useful criticism you've ever received, and what did you learn from it?
Sure. I think as a new manager, I struggled sometimes with holding my staff accountable. It was a new role for me. I was not maybe used to the one-on-one leadership that you sometimes have to have as a manager or the head of an organization and leading a staff. I had a staff of 30 people, and so there was a lot going on. I had, to my benefit, my police chief that I worked with for some time was a much more experienced administrator at the time, and he kind of sat me down one day and said, "You have to be firm, but you must, you can be fair." And that really helped me, I think, shape up and professionalize our office a little bit. We had some personnel issues that needed to be corrected. And at first I was a bit intimidated by that. I think I was, probably the youngest employee in the village at the time. And so I had someone who, kind of gave me a kick, in the butt and said, "Hey, you're here for a reason. You have to be a leader and hold your staff accountable. Otherwise they're going to run all over you." And I really appreciated that sentiment and it helped me gain confidence.
Thank you.
Excellent. Russ?
As you ponder the future of Saugatuck, in your opinion, what are the three most important things that the city council should consider addressing in a future planning retreat?
Well, I think ultimately, at the end of the day, that will be up to the council. Your direction is really what becomes my responsibility. I think the things that I think are critical to your continued success are, one, taking care of your infrastructure, protecting your natural environment, and then also making sure that you're meeting the needs of your small business owners, your residents. I know reading through your strategic plan and some of the other planning documents, that making sure that Kalamazoo Lake is preserved in a way that retains its, recreational and also, home values that are going to be around there, quite important. And so that would be, certainly things that I think are very important. On the finance side, I think making sure that, with Headley rollbacks, that has made it, I think, somewhat tough on the village. But making sure that you can secure those things and planning projects in a way that makes sense that you can afford.
All right, Holly?
Our new city manager will need to be a regional voice and foster excellent relationships with our neighboring communities. Please share a collaborative experience that led you with that you led with an adjacent community.
Sure. When I was in Paw Paw, we had a housing development that was on 15 acres, and they wanted to put in a mixture of residential homes, townhomes, and apartments. The problem that came from that, which was a very desirable asset to our community, was that we had infrastructure and property ownership by several different entities. We had the school district, the county, and then also the township, and then also ourselves. So we had all this intermingling infrastructure and property lines that we had to figure out. I think the success that came was because I did spend a lot of time in the beginning of my tenure and throughout my tenure, is getting to know my fellow colleagues, whether that be the school superintendent, the county administrator, the township supervisor and his staff. And those relationships really benefited the future progress of that, because at first, not everyone was willing to kind of like, hey, tit for tat kind of to make sure that this project, and also the school had a project to the north that was going to involve the same utilities, same lines of land ownership. And so we ended up, kind of getting a meeting of the minds together and met several times with those entities as well as the developer. And I'm happy to, report that we found consensus, and the county and the township and the school district, we were all going to collaborate on this project in one way or another that would save costs for everybody and alleviate a lot of those concerns. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Logan?
Financial stewardship is critical to our operations. As you mentioned, we've been doing some work there. Have you had an opportunity to review our annual budget? And if so, did anything stand out to you after review?
Yes, I have reviewed your budget. I think one of the things that really stood out to me that I think I thought was very different is that your revenues and your expenditures almost always equaled each other and left like basically a predicted or expected zero balance to either be an increase or a decrease, which I thought was one, it's either very exact accounting of what's going to happen, or it's just maybe a methodical approach of how you want your budgets presented. Beyond that, looking a little bit deeper into your audits, it was very clear that you have healthy reserve balances. And so coming up even at the end of the year actually would be, not detrimental. You're not, you're not losing ground necessarily. And so I thought the budget was very well put together, very organized. And even to, a resident who was just curious about what was going on with the city, very accessible. So I think those are all great things to have.
Okay. Gregory?
Many of the projects we have here, many, hope to achieve over the next 5 years involve grant writing and economic development. Can you detail your current and or previous experience in grant writing and successful economic development projects?
Sure. I've overseen grants for water and sewer projects. We had $13 million in water and sewer projects while I was there. So I oversaw a lot of and did myself the grant reporting. I helped with our DDA. We applied for a grant with the CVB to help pay for a wayfinding sign project. When it came to state grants, during the end of my time, we applied for a grant through through Eagle to help pay for a dam reconstruction project. That ended up also being like a $2.5 million project, which we were estimating. I have later found out that the village was unsuccessful in that grant application. But to soften the blow, before we did that application to Eagle, we worked with our state legislator, our state senator, Eric Nesbitt at the time, and he was able to secure $1.1 million for the village of Paw Paw towards that dam project. And I was responsible for putting together a lot of information for him, met with him and his staff several times to help advocate on our behalf, and we were successful in that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Scott?
Fast forward to May 2025. It is time for the city council to evaluate your first year as our city manager. Please share with us what you hope to have accomplished in your first year in office.
Yeah, I think, one is going to be a successful budget cycle. I think that's one of the first priorities that I would have. Also making sure that we are keeping track of grant opportunities through the state and having applied for those that are relative to the projects that the city has. I think other than that, those are going to come from directives from the council. As a new manager here in the city, I would make sure to meet with the council and meet with my department heads to make sure that we can form a consensus on what the priorities are for the next year and to make sure that we're making progress in accomplishing those.
When you consider all of the components of municipal management, what one area do you believe you truly excel in? And what area do you continue to seek improving?
Sure. I think one area where I really excel in is working with people. I pride myself in being very approachable, being very fair-minded, and I don't get too excited even when maybe you get approached by someone who has strong passion. I think those are things that I really pride myself in and have found that those have helped me along the way as whether I was the mayor or a village manager. I think one area where I really could use more experience in is managing people. I think that that's one area where as you continue to grow, I think your leadership style probably alters and changes depending on the organization and the people you're working with. And I think that any experienced manager or administrator would tell you that is always a challenge and you will always continue to grow in that area.
What do you consider to be the most innovative idea or project that you've brought to fruition in your career?
I think the most innovative idea that I've ever had in my career was basically tweaking with our budget in Paw Paw. We had a budget that to me at first didn't make a lot of sense. And it was because of how we pay different employees from different departments depending on what they're doing. And that was, fine, but we really needed to be more flexible to make sure that our fund balances made sense, that we weren't overdrawing from special funds like Parks and Rec, or at the time, our electric department. And so I reworked how that was done internally with our treasurer and our clerk to make sure that the budget made a lot more sense and to me was more logical. And I think the staff and the council really appreciated that. I think that was an innovative experience for me because it was, I was a newer manager and I was trying something new. I had the support of my council and it did end up making things a lot easier in the future and straightforward for our budget.
Thank you.
Great. Russ?
Every community, regardless of size or location, can experience conflict.
Mhm.
Everyone recognizes that serving a group of 7 elected officials can be a daunting task. In your experience, how best do you manage city council conflict?
I think I managed city council conflict very well. I've had some contentious meetings before with, when it comes to members of the public. I've had city council members who have had serious disagreements. I hesitate to say anything, but I did have, council members who were very hostile towards one another at separate times. And so I worked with both of those people to kind of make sure that we calmed the waters off screen and obviously during a couple of particular meetings, it was very tense, but we managed through. I also incorporated the help of our mayor or council president at the time to help kind of soften. So I wasn't the only person saying like, hey, we've got to do better in a public meeting. And I think that was very helpful. We ended up having a long stretch of period with very limited conflicts between city council members and the public. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Holly?
We're about ready to wrap things up. Please take 2 to 3 minutes to tell us why you are the right fit and ideal candidate to lead the city of Saugatuck.
Yeah. I'm the right candidate for the city of Saugatuck because I'm very ambitious and very motivated to do well here. I think that when I come here, I've got close friends who live by. So for me, this seems like in some ways, not far from home. Obviously, where I grew up is, on the other side of the state. But for me, this would be, I would take great pride in my work here. I'm very persistent and hardworking. And I'm not afraid to meet people where they are. I've got a thick skin and can deal with people who have issues and hopefully we can find solutions. And I think that through my education and background, I'm very skilled when it comes to financials and budgeting. So.
And at this time, do you have questions for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I would ask, and this is kind of a 2-part question, I guess, is, I like to ask the council, what are things that you are most proud of in your community that you'd like to see, I guess, that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah. Does anybody want to take that one?
I can.
Yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
tell you what I'm most proud of in our community. I also chair the Parks and Public Works Department, and I'm very proud of our green space.
Yeah.
And I see my role, and I think I would advocate that our council's role should be to protect and advocate for our green space. I say to people all the time, people don't come here to go to the bar. You can go to the bar anywhere. There's lots of nice bars around. They come here. So it's good for economics. It's good for the residents. It's good for nature and all the things that it provides.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm most proud of for Saugatuck is our very unique and beautiful green space.
Go ahead, Gregory.
I'm really, really super, super proud of our industry. We have such a wonderful area here, and we're very unique to the fact that our industry of tourism, that's our bread and butter here, and that's everything here. And we have such a wonderful eclectic group of shops, business owners that live here and live close here. that depend on our income, our livelihood, our safe infrastructure. As we get more people that come into our towns, we need to probably spend more time thinking about infrastructure, and updating that so that it accommodates. Yeah, I've got to say that's probably one of the most proud. There's lots of things. I love our green spaces too. But I've got to say, having a business here and working with the business owners for so long over the years, I'm very proud of our industry.
Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My family's been here for a long time. I was born and raised in this community. It's far different today than it was when the bus stop was in front of my house, just a few blocks from here. Having said that, the basics of this community remain the same. The people, that's what I'm most proud of, is that Saugatuck attracts a very unique set of people. And that has its challenges, but it's a lot of pluses in my mind. We got a lot of very smart people that come to this community, want to enjoy it, and want to sustain the things that they've enjoyed when they come here.
Right.
And the challenge of the city is to stay within our boundaries and try to fix those, or not fix, but to work on those things that really attract people to the community, the green space, the infrastructure, those things that really are the bread and butter. And really the thing I'm most proud of though is the staff. This city is so lucky to have staff that is experienced and is generational talent that is really something we'd be proud of. And I'm really looking for a manager that's going to inspire, lead, and transform the staff into really a team that I think can really outdo itself and can outdo it and will outdo itself. So that's what I'm most proud of.
Anybody else?
Well, I think,
Like, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, sorry, no, please.
You know, all good things that everyone said. I think the thing I would add is there is a love of this community that I think is shared by every person who lives here. And when things do get spicy, because we don't always agree, I think that love of community and wanting to serve it well keeps us together and enables us to, you know, shake the dust off and move forward.
Yeah.
That?
Well, I think you captured it in your answer to question 8. And I like the phrase you used, placemaking. It's a very unique place, and I think we're very proud that we're maintaining that brand that you also mentioned. You know, it's the arts and culture, it's the innovative retail, the entrepreneurial nature of some of our businesses, and of course, most importantly, it's our beach and our natural spaces that people truly appreciate. And so I think we're all quite proud of being stewards of that. So, well, good.
Logan, anything? I will just add a few more things. You know, just the kindness of our community. I know things get, as Holly mentioned, can get spicy in this realm. But I hear that I'm a business owner in town and I hear it from people all the time. Everyone is so kind here. This is really wonderful. And I feel that, I really do. Our community is very kind. And I love our school district as well. We're a small town, which means we have a small school district, and that's also part of our community. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. I asked that question because I like to see how, you know, your impression reflects my impression. I'd say it matches very closely. I think all the things that you've mentioned as a group are things that I've seen and very appreciative of, you know, the guardianship of your staff. I think obviously that as a manager, that's certainly on your top of priorities. But you know, the sense of community, the green spaces, the tight-knit community, you can see it really in everything here. And I think it's what makes it such a special place. If I had one more question, if we have time.
Please, yeah.
So I wonder how does the council view its role as when it comes to, you know, overseeing day-to-day operations, or how it communicates with the manager and maybe department head level staff?
All right. Anybody want to take that?
I'll start. Coming from a corporate background, I look at the council and under our charter, we are a council manager. We're a manager strong. We're not a strong mayor, we're a strong manager form of governance. And I see our role as basically a board of directors who represent the voters who are our shareholders. So my belief, my very strong belief, is the council should be very hands-off on the manager's day-to-day activities. We should work through the mayor, who should be basically our chairman of the board, if you will, who then works with the CEO, who would be the manager. And I believe that we should be very faithful to that concept of a strong manager form of governance.
I fully echo Mr. Dean's comments.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor, I would take just a slightly different spin on that. As a manager, and I've been a manager in my life, obviously, I've also been an executive. Managers need managers, and I think the council has a role, even though it's a strong manager, weak council form of government. The manager needs some guidance. In terms of development, you mentioned developing people, something that the council, I believe, has a role in helping our manager achieve that. Now, that doesn't mean day-to-day management, but what it means is getting policy, setting goals, setting objectives for that goal to be met. I really view the council as being an opportunity to help the manager get on the right direction and then let that person move, let that person do their job. But I do believe the council does have a more involved role with the manager, setting some expectations
Sure.
and then letting that person move.
Yeah, and I would just add that we go through strategic planning at the beginning of the year and hopefully an update halfway through the year as well, as Logan had offered up. And, setting goals, we're the eyes and ears of our community and we hear from people. And that's what we need to do, is to give you what we're hearing from our community as some of our top priorities. We do surveys. We have a lot of public input. We have a lot of opportunities for people to be involved. Tons of meetings, different ideas where people can come forward and shape what our strategic planning looks like. And then that way we can start the year off that way every single year with a new set of eyes on what our goals as a city is. And that is what, our job is, to be the eyes and ears and help get that to you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your insights and
Okay.
perspectives.
You.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
All right. If there's,
Do I have an opportunity to ask a question? The city manager plays many roles. How would you educate the council members on the charter and ordinances to keep them updated on legalities when making decisions for the city?
I think it has to be, I think MML would probably encourage all of you to read your city charter, and certainly as your manager, I even took a look at it before this interview just to kind of briefly get an overview. But I think, being well learned in what your city charter says and what your ordinances are is very important, especially to myself as a manager and the day-to-day operations. I think typically usually those things kind of come up when there's a problem, unfortunately. And so I think on a case-by-case basis, if there's, a particular issue, I may, as a new manager, kind of do more of an individual dive into like understanding more of your ordinances specifically. But if an issue comes up, I certainly would, in a meeting, or whether, if it comes to a full council meeting, or if it's just sort of a, an email, trying to like give you the actual wording of the ordinance, and then kind of giving you what the interpretation should be, if need be. We'll certainly consult the legal attorney for the city and make sure that we have things squared away. And sometimes you get into closed meetings and things like that, but that would be my approach, I believe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
all right. If there is nothing else, we thank you so much for
Yeah, thanks
being
for
here.
coming
We
in.
appreciate it
Yeah.
so much. Just welcome to Saugatuck and thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is one in many days here, and I look forward to many more. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
For coming.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so Frank's known me for a few years. I served on the board of directors for Isabella County Restoration House, and that is the homeless shelter that serves Isabella County. It was a fairly new nonprofit when I joined the board of directors. I was on the board for 5 years, and in my last year, I served as president. I even served when I was down here in Paw Paw working, because it was I had a lot of passion for it. And that organization has grew quite a bit. We were a rotating shelter, rotating through different churches in the community. And then we were able to purchase our own property Well, we were renting for quite a while, but they are finally moving into a property that they've purchased. And so my main role was overseeing, obviously, the executive director and working with the board as on the finance committee and making sure that, we were headed in the right direction, but also advocating and fundraising and volunteering. And so that was a passion of mine. And I still continue to support them just because Mount Pleasant is near and dear to my heart. And I obviously still know a lot of people on that board and the executive director. So,
Fantastic.
Thanks, Will.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Frank.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, could we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Okay. Jamie, do you have to like stop the recording or we just leave it on for our 5-minute break?
We need a motion to go into,
Do we need a motion to take a 5-minute break?
okay.
Okay. All right. If we could all take a 5-minute break and then we'll be back
about being remote or not.
Okay, we are ready for our next interview. If Ryan Cummins could please come up. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, so we're going to just start off. We have a lot of questions that we ask of all of the candidates this afternoon. And we appreciate your time and energy getting to know our community, obviously over the last few years, being the interim city manager. If you could take an opportunity, the next 2 to 3 minutes, just tell us a little bit about both personally and professionally, just a little bit about yourself, maybe for those who just don't know a little bit more about your background.
Certainly. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, council members, for your time this afternoon. I know you have several interviews lined up, and it sounds like a discussion scheduled afterwards. So a lot of work ahead of you, especially on a beautiful day. And I was thinking to myself, and I heard I was to be standing at the podium. I haven't stood at this podium actually in several months, and it feels a little bit different to be back up here versus kind of sitting at the table with you. But again, thank you really for the opportunity to be here. A couple folks I want to introduce you to that came with me today that wanted to come, and they were like, hey, this is a public interview and I want to see this and support you. So my fiance, Lisa Kraus, is here with me this afternoon, and my mother, Michelle, came along with her to show her support as well. So so just a little bit about me. I'm from West Michigan. So I grew up in Muskegon. My parents still live there. My sister still lives there, so I'm still there quite frequently. In fact, Lisa owns an Edward Jones branch and is still there as well. Currently living in the Grand Haven area. And essentially we're huge fans of anything on or by the water. So water is extremely important to us and a big part of what makes us who we are. Lisa and I are huge fans of really exploring new places and trying new things. So we love to travel, check out different small towns in Michigan, different areas, different cities. We're going out to Portland, Oregon for a long Memorial Day weekend. So we like to travel around the country, and then we like to do some international travel as well. So we've been to Iceland, Morocco, Cuba last year, and then we actually just booked a trip a month ago or so to India and Nepal this November. So really enjoy traveling. Huge into enjoying all kinds of different foods and new things like that. We like checking out different restaurants. Lisa's on the Taste of Muskegon Festival. That's actually how we met. So we're huge into those things and love traveling. On the professional side of things, I'm a graduate of Michigan State University. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice. And really, I think, and maybe this has kind of come across in the past to some of you, I'm a little bit of a government nerd, self-described, but Lisa would tell you actually on our second date, we were on our way back from Grand Rapids, and I was telling her about a local electric utility concern going on in the Grand Haven area. And she would tell me later about how boring it was to be hearing about this. She's still here and still supporting me, but I still absolutely love local government. I've been involved in local, county, and state government for over 13 years now. And I've been fortunate to be in elected positions, appointed positions, and staff positions. And I think that, I'm able to really bring a really well-rounded set of experience here to the city of Saugatuck. I know you have my resume. I won't go through it, piece by piece, but I hope we can kind of discuss some of those things throughout the interview today. So thank you.
All right. Not every decision you make turns out as planned.
Yes.
Sometimes there are disappointments along the way. Please share a time when a project you were involved in did not yield the results you had hoped for, and what did you learn from the process?
Yeah. I think, really, probably a good example of that was, I was, started in a year and a half ago, and a few months in, there was policy direction from you as council members, and certainly our planning commission members were interested in kind of having a further discussion related to short-term rentals and concerns that were arising. And kind of shortly into that conversation, I was given, direction from the then city manager to kind of work with our legal counsel to prepare a short-term rental moratorium for our planning commission and city council members to consider. So what followed with that is ultimately, some information coming out in a planning commission meeting packet, and a lot of folks were very concerned. They didn't know where it'd come from. There's a lot of details, or a lot of maybe misunderstandings and confusion about what it meant, what it didn't mean. And fast forward a little bit, the city council ended up saying, no, this is not something that we would like to pursue at this time. And I think as you take that process and you fast forward it, we went through a really robust short-term rental task force process. But if you fast forward to the point where we had short-term rental ordinance updates, and then a second recommendation ultimately from the planning commission for the council to consider a moratorium. We kind of learned, I think, from some of those previous mistakes in that folks were saying, hey, you got to break this down and make it a little bit more digestible. It's not as simple as just maybe putting it in a meeting packet with a staff memo that maybe even contains a lot of details. It's, break it down, make it digestible for folks. It's, explaining the options, what it does, what it doesn't do. And I think we at least saw success with that the second time in saying, let's put out a public information sheet to kind of break this down and explain things to folks to help them understand instead of leading through multiple pages of the ordinance language. And so, it didn't quite go as planned, maybe the first time, just from a staff perspective and how it was maybe carried out and executed, but at least the second time, I think we were able to at least present the information in a way that helped you make a decision, but also the community understand the decisions that you were facing.
Russ?
Still here. The city of Sagatuck is looking for a leader who will, excuse me, who will serve our community with exemplary leadership. Please share a time in the past 3 years that you went above and beyond to provide excellent leadership in your current position.
Yeah, I think, for me, as I was, thinking through different questions that might arise or different scenarios that would be kind of good to touch on. I think for me, the time where I've shown great leadership, is really in the last, nearly 4 months that I've served as your interim city manager. One, I, appreciate the trust that you had and putting me in that position, and the trust to, that I would be able to handle, both particular positions, as well. And I think, hopefully that you've seen that we've been able to really kind of keep moving along on your, policy direction and your priorities that you've set, where we haven't had to, kind of pause and wait for somebody else to necessarily get up to speed. I was just kind of thinking about, okay, well, what have we really covered in the last, 90 days or so? Well, I talked about, short-term rentals. You have a new short-term rental licensing ordinance that was passed within the last 90 days, an updated noise and zoning ordinance related to short-term rentals. I brought you a short-term rental enforcement plan, which was reviewed and approved. We updated the short-term rental, violation fines and fees. One of your priorities was to look at Oval Beach fees. We recently did that, and you recently updated your Oval Beach fees. We've prepared and presented you a fiscal year 24-25 budget based around the priorities that you had set for the year, and some of your committee recommendations. Fortunately, we faced a lawsuit in the last, month or so, but we settled that lawsuit within 8 days. And then we're able to move forward with a, community playground build. The airport property received some further discussion based on recommendations from committees. And, ultimately at this point, there's a plan that's going to, formalize some trails and we're going to, treat some invasives based on, the council direction. We've continued the discussions with AT&T. I just met with the AT&T Wi-Fi team yesterday. The Blue Star Trail project continues, intersection improvements. So I hope that I've shown you the leadership in doing both positions, and know that I hope to be more strategic if I'm doing one position, and maybe more innovative in the position as I'm able to kind of hopefully drop one off and focus on one position.
Holly?
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
A resident just came into your office and confronted you with an unusually high water bill. Their monthly water bill was just over $500. In reviewing the previous 2 years of water bills, you note that the largest monthly bill they had received to date was $180. Please share with us the steps you would take in considering their request to lower the bill from $500 to $180.
Gotcha. Well, I think there's a few different layers there. One, if they're coming in with that concern, they're probably pretty upset. It's a pretty substantial difference. So I think it's really important to kind of listen and hear folks out, hear what their particular concern is, and make sure that you fully understand that. I think the next step then from there is really kind of taking a look at options and really what the reasoning may be for such a high water bill like that. So here in Sagatuck, we have a relationship with the Water Sewer Authority, and they kind of handle more of some of the repairs and emergency related issues. So if we're seeing an increase like that, we probably have a leak potentially somewhere. So is that leak on the city side of things, a leak on private property? So we would talk through those particular issues, probably connect them with the Cal Lake Water Sewer Authority to do that, or some local plumbers to kind of explore that particular issue. And then once it's really known what the particular cause was at that point, is probably more of a conversation of how does Cal Lake handle, and what are their policies on handling leaks or breaks where there's a lot of water that you were charged for, but ultimately didn't use and, maybe just simply went into the ground ultimately and seeing what kind of policies and procedures they might have on that.
All right, Logan.
Make it a fun one. Saugatuck is a special place.
It is, yeah.
Our community is well known throughout the state and Midwest as pure Michigan.
Hmm.
While we certainly benefit greatly from tourism, our community desires to maintain our small town charm.
Hmm.
What is your vision on how our community can promote tourism and still maintain our lovely haven we call home?
Yeah, so fantastic question. And that's, I think, the balance that you as policymakers are wrestling with every day. And, ultimately, I'm going to look to you as our policy, our council, as our policymakers to give that direction on what that right balance looks like for you. Certainly, you have a land use master plan that, the main overarching goal of it states that we're here to preserve, that small town charm and rural character of the community. And so there's a lot of, goals in that master plan that are really smart, what we call smart goals that would accomplish that. I think a good example, maybe more recently of, I don't know if it's me or, okay. I should know better, right? So I think a good example of trying to find that right balance, recently is really the work that your planning commission and staff and you as a council did on the waterfront preservation project, right? And kind of saying, hey, how do we maintain our natural and open space, but still allow for reasonable development, compact building design, maintaining sight lines, but also, hey, we realize there's going to be some development that occurs and there's a need for business and new attractions and places for people to stay. And so how do we find that right balance and what, the community is looking for? And so it was a balance between doing 2 community surveys, visual surveys, not just simply words. So, pop-up engagement, multiple public meetings, public hearings, and ultimately you as a city council saying, yes, that we believe that we struck, the right balance with it.
Okay, Gregory.
Providing excellent customer service is critical in local government. And, we take great pride in responding to our customers. I know all of us on council do when we talk to our residents. Please share a time when you were able to solve a particular challenging citizen customer concern using excellent personal skills.
All right. Yeah, and I think, working in the planning and zoning world is always, a tough balance. And there's folks constantly coming in with ideas and projects and, just on like a day-to-day good customer service, level. Haven't always been able to stick to this doing both, dual roles, but, I try to get back to folks within 24 hours via email or on the phone if they have questions or concerns. So I think, responsiveness is key. I can't always design a project for somebody. I can't fill out the paperwork for them, and I can't tell them sort of what to do with their project, but I can certainly provide resources and information for them to have all of the tools to, have a successful application. And then once they submit it, kind of be like, hey, you should maybe, provide a little bit more information here or update this information here, because maybe our planning commissioners are going to have some questions. I think a good example of that, more recently, could have been like, the Saugatuck folks. In fact, they had followed up with me and with a couple of thank yous, and that they had a lot of hurdles to get over to bring a restaurant to 650 Water Street. Not just initial zoning approvals when we actually had a moratorium and evaluating whether or not they were subject to the moratorium, but getting those approvals and then realizing they were going to have some encroachments into the right of way that were going to trigger some variances and some trigger some approvals by you as a city council, and helping them navigate that process, understand the process, the next steps, and making, reasonable recommendations, I think, related to what they were trying to do, and letting them know, again, the options that they had. They have followed up a couple of times with me and thanking me for helping them get through that process. Even though it was a challenging one and they had a lot to go through, they were grateful for that.
Scott?
Yep. Thanks for being here. As we review your resume, we note several excellent accomplishments. Please describe 2 of your proudest professional accomplishments.
Yeah, so right, maybe I'll give you 3. How about that? I've been, well, one, I've been fortunate to work in the child welfare field for Child Protective Services. I manage the Child Protective Services Investigation Unit. So I've been a part of helping protect kids, but I also worked as a foster care case manager when I first started, and I've helped reunify families. Very proud moments. You know, you can see from my resume, I've worked for the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department. I've literally saved people's lives. For me, it's going to be hard to top that. But I think maybe a more local example, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here in this room today, is really when I was hired as the director of planning and zoning for the city of Saugatuck. And the reason I say that is because I didn't have the traditional educational background or background in planning and zoning. I literally, like 10 years ago, you know, moved to the city of Grand Haven, wanted to get involved in a border commission in my city, and it was on our website. And there's this thing called a planning commission that I'd never even heard of that had an opening. And I read about a planning commission. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. I had never even heard the word zoning, had no clue what any of it was, but I applied. And to the then mayor's credit, you know, I was a younger person that had transferable skills that she's like, you're used to reading laws and regulations and applying them, because that's what I did for child welfare and working for the sheriff's office. She's like, you'll learn it, and we need a different generational perspective. And she recommended me, and the council appointed me. And so, fast forward, 4 years on the planning commission, 2 years as the zoning board of appeals member, including some time as chairman. And then, time certainly as a city council member and doing other local county and state government work. I ended up, visiting Saugatuck a lot, but then being offered a job in a beautiful community such as this, it's done great things from a planning and zoning perspective. To be able to be hired into that position, for me, it was a huge professional accomplishment. Obviously, it didn't come without some controversy at the beginning. And I knew that I just needed to do the job that I knew I could do, dig in, learn. I needed to learn some things, but earn trust over time, build those relationships. And I think that I've done that. I hope that you think that too. So.
Thank you. So this one, thinking back to when you first became our planning and zoning director, and then as now interim city manager, what drew you to want to take on the city manager role here in Saugatuck?
So this has been the one thing that I think at times has kept me grounded throughout, is that, there's the mural on the side of, where Baldy's Meats was at that says, smile, you're in Saugatuck. And, we always have a lot going on, and I know there's a lot of different opinions on different issues that come up. But at the end of the day, when you're able to just kind of be like, think about that and it's like, smile, you're in Saugatuck. Like the fact that I can take a break or, on my lunch period, go for a walk along the boardwalk or up into the neighborhoods, because then there's a little more shady, and especially on those hot days, and you're not getting blasted with the sun and that sort of thing. And it's just a gorgeous community. I mean, certainly, numerous awards for Oval Beach and town over time, but then, recently to be named, number 2, best small town in the United States, beating out Key West. I mean, who wouldn't, I guess, want that opportunity to work with, the town and you as a council and our fellow staff here are fantastic. I mean, we're very resourceful staff. We have to wear a lot of hats, but we also have a very supportive city council who gives us the tools and the resources that we needed to do the job and carry it out. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and interview. So.
What is the most useful criticism you ever received, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I'm certainly not immune from criticism. I've been criticized, my staff position at times here, and certainly as an elected council member for the city of Grand Haven and wearing that hat, I've certainly faced my fair share of criticism as well, right? I think, there was at one point, I was told by some folks, like, you really care too much what people think. And I realized that was true. I was taking to heart sometimes too much criticism. And I learned over time that, I can't control what other people think, how they're going to react, how they're going to respond, and how they feel. And that I needed to be a little bit more selective and maybe who I was willing to accept that constructive criticism or advice from. So that would probably be. Yep.
Good. Russ?
Yeah, thanks. As you ponder the future of Saugatuck, in your opinion, what are the 3 most important things that the city council should consider addressing in a future planning retreat?
Yeah, so I would say that, being here, I think the things that, I would suggest are really a lot of the things that you're, doing now that are on your priority list. I think, certainly, over the next year, I think we're tri-community plan was last updated in 2016. So kind of updating our land use master plan, as well as kind of doing maybe a fuller audit of our zoning to kind of do a refresh and kind of bring that up to speed is certainly something that we're certainly due for. I think that our, since I've been on as the interim manager and even as the planning and zoning director and working with other entities, I think it's continuing to really build on, I think, the collaborative relationships that have been established with certainly our water sewer authority, but our fire department, our sheriff's office, our convention and visitors bureau, Douglas, the township, really continue to build on those relationships. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner with the township or Douglas to find ways to kind of consolidate maybe some services and work together on purchases of equipment or other types of things like that. So I think that's something that's definitely worth exploring. And then I think, this one's certainly on your radar as it is, but, let's continue to maintain and improve the infrastructure that we have. We have a lot of needs and like every community, right? There's very limited resources. So we do have to prioritize what projects we do in what order, but we certainly want to continue to reinvest in our amenities and infrastructure that we have here locally. We can focus on those three things. I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
Thanks.
All right, Holly?
Our new city manager will need to be a regional voice and foster excellent relationships with our neighboring communities. Please share a collaborative experience that you led with an adjacent community.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. I just touched on that, right? And so, every day we're collaborating in some way with our area partners. So, I'm collaborating every day with the fire department as it relates to certainly short-term rental inspections, but, they conduct site plan reviews for a lot of our planning and zoning projects, new homes, certainly commercial development. So we're coordinating, incorporating their feedback and their lens of the fire codes. We're doing that all the time. Right now, we're kind of all working and collaborating, and we have the first draft of a water operations agreement. So we're still early on, but it's still a collaborative. We're working to make that a collaborative effort where everybody's, kind of at the table and has input on that. Maybe not every day, but, every week, Daniel and Lisa, from Douglas and the township, we're having conversations about different issues that pop up. Hey, what do you think? We don't always agree with each other, but hey, what do you think? Hey, this is my thought on this. Hey, so we're talking, and that's huge. I met with Daniel a couple weeks ago, and we had a huge long list of mutual items of interest. And so we sat and went down through different things that are on the township radar, different things that are on the city radar. How do we collaborate on the things that are of joint interest? Our convention and visitors bureau, each manager, we're attending their monthly meetings. We are providing them with monthly reports, just like we provide, you with regular updates. We're providing the CVB board. And so, and just yesterday, I had a meeting with AT&T related to Wi-Fi, and I invited Lisa to come along and join me. She's hearing the same concerns, and I'm not the only one with the good ideas or questions. And so I invited her to join in that meeting. So.
Logan?
Financial stewardship is critical to our operations. Have you had an opportunity to review our annual budget?
Hope so, yeah.
If so, has anything stood out to you after your review?
So yes, I'm quite familiar with the budgets. About a month ago, we had a work session meeting, right, where we focused on the budget, and I presented the staff recommendation for a budget for next fiscal year. And so that was a culmination of I think a good process. That's what sticks out to me, that it started with a citizen survey several months ago and saying, hey, asking the community what their priorities are. And then the city council taking that surveyed feedback and what, you as elected officials are hearing from your constituents, and sitting down and having a strategic planning session where you kind of outline the priorities that you're looking to see in the next budget for staff to carry out. And then I really tried to do a really collaborative process with staff in preparing this budget as well and sitting down with each department head to kind of walk through, okay, here's the council's priorities. How do we make sure that we're, hitting them in this next fiscal year? But then, what do you need to operationally to do your job day in and day out based on the expectations that the council has? So we brought that forth and presented you with the budget for next fiscal year. I think the things that stick out to me are, again, we certainly have a lot of needs, but we also have there's been very good fiscal stewardship in the past. There's a very healthy fund balance at $5.8 million. 1.1 million of it is restricted, but you're at 4.7 million unrestricted. We're looking to, spend a little bit of that next year on some, Mount Bald Head improvements. Certainly there's, the Blue Star Trail and intersection improvements at Lake and Blue Star. So we have some needs, but we have some dollars there to help. Maple Street project is certainly going to be a big one, and it's going to, frankly, unless we have some other funding sources, going to take some of those, fund balances from your major and local streets, which also your major street side, it does have some healthy fund balance as well. So we have some resources there, but it also is limited. And we have to also try to find those additional revenue streams. I think the other piece with the budget that's going to be important to figure out is how do we long-term, replace our water mains and our lead service lines, because we don't have a really dedicated funding source for that. And so your asset management plan said that you really should have a water infrastructure fee. And that's a conversation that I hope to have with council soon.
Okay,
Thank you.
Gregory?
Well, this is a good one to follow that up with. And you've heard me ask about these and during many of our meetings that I've served in the last 2 years, of many of the projects we hope to achieve over the next 5 years involve grant writing and economic development. Please detail your current and or previous experience in grant writing and successful economic development projects.
Okay. Yeah, so kind of a combination question here. So so I worked as the community coordinator for the Muskegon Police Department for a period of time, actually prior to coming here to Saugatuck. And so I worked directly for the Department of Public Safety, and part of my many hats that I had to wear there was kind of a jack of all trades position, was grant administration. So I oversaw all of the police department's grants, applying for grants at the federal money, state money, local money from, local community foundations, and found, good success in getting dollars for, bulletproof vests, for additional training, additional equipment. We actually were successful in retaining some grants because of, the applications that we put in to retain some detectives that were handling domestic violence related caseloads as well. That was some state dollars. And then there's a whole process that goes into it. Once you get the grants, grant administration can be very difficult and challenging, especially with federal dollars and state dollars. And so there's a lot of reporting, a lot of audits that are done. So I do have experience working through all of that. Just recently here in the city, we had the Michigan Coastal Management Grant Program through Eagle reached out and said, yeah, absolutely, come on. And they wanted to talk with the planning commission and staff about, hey, we have some dollars available. We think Saugatuck might be really beneficial for them. So I literally, since that meeting, had some emails and discussions with them about some projects that I'm hoping that they may be willing to fund, that we will submit some grant applications for here in the fall. Now, on the economic development front, I worked as an event planner for the city of Muskegon. Our team provided support for Downtown Development Authority events. So I've attended a number of DDA meetings, for them. Our team also oversaw the Western Market chalet shops. If you've ever been to Muskegon, there's 17 small incubator shops downtown. Our team oversaw those, took applications, decided who goes into those, and then supported them throughout the year with events as well. We also oversaw the farmers markets. We did some different programming and events there. Because we know events can drive traffic and drive economic development, make things interesting. So I think that covers it, I hope, but all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Scott.
Fast forward to May 2025. It is time for the city council to evaluate your first year as our city manager. Please share with us what you hope to have accomplished in your first year in office.
Well, I hope that ultimately that you believe I've carried out your council direction and your priorities. I mean, that's ultimately the manager's job, right? Is to, you as our policymakers get to, identify collectively, at least, this is the direction that we want to go. These are the priorities and things that are important to us, figure out a way to carry those things out. So I hope that, you're evaluating me and saying, yes, I have been doing that. So, I fast forward a year, I'm probably thinking that we want to make sure that we've, fully implemented our short-term rental enforcement plan. And at that point, maybe you're probably making adjustments to it. And then maybe we have some data at that point to kind of see how it's going and some feedback from folks. Hoping a year from now, we're going to have a water operations agreement with Cali. That's an important piece that we need to kind of get across the finish line. We're still probably several months away on that, but we're making some steps in the right direction. I think that's important to get done. Again, hopefully water infrastructure, we have a funding mechanism for that. And then really we have a lot of projects that are like in progress that I'm hoping that we just, continue, kick it away on here, right? So I met with AT&T last week, the cellular folks related to the Mount Bald Head. We're still working through those SHPO approvals and kind of we're working on some responses for that. So hopefully we have AT&T service a year from now. Hopefully those new bathrooms are installed at Mount Bald Head. Maybe the upper platforms constructed or the construction has begun a year from now. Certainly want the Blue Star Trail construction to have begun a year from now and those intersection improvements. I'm hopeful that that's underway as well. Hope we're well underway with engineering for road replacement of Maple Street and water main replacement under Maple Street. I don't know if we'll have construction broken ground in a year. It'd be great if we could, but at least be pretty far along with engineering and hopefully funding. And we'll know where we're going on that. So, and I'm sure some other projects will pop up along the way too.
Well, when you consider all of the components of municipal management, what one area do you believe you truly excel in? And what area do you continue to seek improving?
Interesting. Yeah, so I think I'm really good at diving into the details and being prepared and figuring things out and being resourceful in that regard. So I think that's a good, strong skill set that I have. And hope to, continue to do that. I mean, obviously there's always lots to learn. I mean, managers in general want to be generalists, right? Know a little about a lot of things and then kind of know the resources and how to get you there. And so I hope I've shown that I have those skills. Certainly the area where I'd love to improve, and I think I might have mentioned this at your strategic planning session, was obviously last year was a busy year planning and zoning wise. I had intended and hoped, even as the planning and zoning person, to get out more and stop by and talk to some business owners more. Saugatuck doesn't quite have like manufacturing or industrial like some other communities have. Like I love taking tours and learning about what different folks are doing. So I can't quite do that here, but I can still, get into different businesses, learn more about them. In fact, I recently had an opportunity a few weeks ago, the Wickwood Inn, the owners invited several different stakeholders and brought us together for a dinner just to kind of get to know each other, frankly, and just build a relationship, but kind of talk initial ideas, and see what everybody's working on. So the more I can, try to do more of that, I'd love to. Sometimes it's a matter of saying these emails can wait. I don't have to be completely caught up. I never will be. So let's take a break, walk down the street, and just talk to a few folks.
Okay.
Yep.
Helen? What do you consider to be the most innovative idea or project that you've brought to fruition in your career?
Career, wow, that's I will say I'm very proud of the work that the short-term rental task force did. That conversation early on was, a conversation with the planning commission, and frankly, using some experience that I had from the city of Grand Haven and handling it in a similar way of saying, hey, we should probably really bring a committee of diverse opinions together on this, different stakeholders. And I know that there was a lot of debate on what that should look like and who should be on it and what that process should be. But eventually we ended up with a short-term rental task force that every one of the members said that they learned some things along the way, which is good, including myself. So we all learned. We had very cordial and respectful conversations throughout that process. And we did a ton of community engagement, very open and transparent, meetings, meeting packets, surveys. We sent out postcards. We had town halls. And then there was a very, comprehensive report that was prepared at the end of that process. And then since then we didn't do it's easy in government sometimes, we'll study it and then it just kind of, it's a report that sits on a shelf, right? And then it gets dusty and it doesn't necessarily go anywhere, but we've actually taken action to implement, I think nearly every recommendation that's in that task force report, we've actually taken action on it. So I'm proud of that process.
Good. I'm going to have Holly take this next question so Russ can ask the one after that. So Holly, if you wouldn't mind doing number 17.
Yeah. Every community, regardless of size or location, can experience conflict. Everyone recognizes that serving a group of 7 elected officials can be a daunting task. In your experience, how do you best manage city council conflict?
Yeah. So, I have the unique perspective of that. I've worn an elected official's hat. So I understand, not what each of you have experienced, but I can at least understand some of the pressures and challenges with, balancing, being a policymaker. Certainly there's, a team of staff members, you're at a high policy level, you're hearing all kinds of different, things from your constituents. It's a healthy thing to have healthy debate. I mean, I think, and frankly, here in Saugatuck, I think, yes, you disagree, but there's certainly, I think it's healthy debate. I mean, there's a way to disagree without being disagreeable. And, if all of you agreed all the time, there would only be a need to have one of you. And so there's a reason why there's 7 of you to, hopefully give and take a little bit and then kind of find some consensus on the issues that you can. You can't always, we love 7-0 votes, but it doesn't always happen that way. And then again, at the end of the day, we do have a majority that ultimately has to make decisions. I think for me as staff, I mean, it's important to, always balance like, hey, I want to build relationships with, every one of you, council members. I mean, I've been doing 2 positions and haven't been able to maybe do that as much as I would like to. I meet with the mayor and mayor pro tem every Monday to kind of discuss where we're at with things, but want to build those good working relationships with each of you council members. Hear your concerns and thoughts, but then at the end of the day, also, I think, you all know, and sometimes I think council members in other communities sometimes kind of don't always realize that, the manager ultimately has to work for the collective council, not any individual council members. And so it's striking that right balance and just kind of, sometimes that may be a gentle reminder and saying, hey, great idea. I need to know that at least a majority of the council is willing to do this or wants me to go in this direction, because we only have, so many resources, limited time. From a staff perspective, it's not about whether I agree or disagree with your policy decisions. It's my job to carry that out. I just need to know that I have, the direction that I need to do the job. So.
Russ, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And this is I'm very grateful that the council has agreed to let me ask this question. So thank you very much. The city manager plays many roles. How would you educate the council members on the charter and ordinances to keep them updated on legalities when making decisions for the city?
Yeah, and I think, it's an ongoing process, right? Because government just continues to get more and more complex for all of us. So certainly, I mean, managers have to stay up on top of latest trends, things that are going on. And so that's a lot of times being connected with the Michigan Municipal League and, different updates that are coming down the pipe as far as legislation, and then certainly sharing that information and educating the council on changes. Certainly, we rely upon good, solid legal counsel to stay up to date on case law and changes that are occurring in the courts and the direction that the courts are going. And I think even with the planning commission, I've tried to, whenever we get case law updates from MSU Extension, I'd share those because, hey, it's not just me as staff that needs to know this. You as planning commissioners need to know as well. I think, when I came here, I said, hey, we really should be doing a new council member orientation here to start folks off, at least with the foundation. I mean, they're not going to remember everything, but start building those relationships with each other and staff, help them understand at least what, a council manager form of government is, kind of covering that, and then covering the different departments and what we do as staff and what our roles are. And then, if there's particular issues or concerns that arise, and we have different education touch points, we can do that. I mean, I know some communities that have kind of, if it's a charter tidbit or reminder every once in a while, we could do something like that.
Yeah. Well, we are about to wrap some things up here. So we just want you to take about 2 to 3 minutes to tell us why you're the right fit and the ideal candidate to lead the city of Saugatuck.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your trust, at least in having me as your interim city manager. And I hope to continue serving in the city manager role. Again, I think, I bring over 13 years of local county and state government experience. I can bring a well-rounded set of experience, and then I've worked in elected roles, appointed roles, worked in staff roles. And yes, I'm a government nerd, but you know, a lot of the reason behind it, and I think I mentioned some of this at, you know, when we were trying to recognize DPW for the work that they do, but literally from the time that you wake up, I mean, government is, you know, helping you with your day, whether it's providing you with clean water or taking waste away, providing roads to drive on, sidewalks to walk on, parks to enjoy, public safety services to, you know, hey, you know, we have crimes or particular nuisance related issues that we have folks that, you know, we're providing that service, the fire department to come to, you know, put out the fire or respond and help you if you have a medical emergency. I mean, government every day, especially your local government. I mean, the state and federal government gets all the attention, but the local government impacts every citizen every day. I enjoy being a part of that. I think we've accomplished a lot, you know, together on the last 3 or 4 months, and I hope for the opportunity to continue working with you going forward.
And this is a time where you can ask questions of us, if you have any questions of us, Ryan.
Well, I think the one question I would ask is, you know, 'cause the question was, after, well, in a year, what would you like to accomplish, or what do you hope that we're saying in your evaluation? But I guess I'd turn that around on the council to say, you know, at the end of a year, what do you think a successful year, first year for a city manager looks like for you?
Would like to take that.
I'll take it first.
Okay.
Just, I want to see everything finished. I've got so many things right now going on. We've
Yeah.
got, I want to see that bathroom finished. I want to see Blue Star well, at least to the points, I think you made good points earlier about saying where you'd like to be in a year when we asked that question. So I appreciate that. But I'd like to see everything finished before we start anything else.
I won't complain with no more projects.
I mean,
Go ahead, Scott.
I won't be that specific, but yeah, focus on continuing to upgrade and improve our infrastructure. And really that's the key is continue to deliver on infrastructure and to, you know, bed down our ordinances. You know, we've got a lot of new ordinances on the book, and, you know, I think as one of our citizens very wisely said at one of our recent meetings, there's no point in having ordinances if you don't enforce them. So to see those ordinances start to work and bear fruit, and if we need to make adjustments, be prepared to do that. So that was for me.
If I may. I think that success would look like you taking direction from council, from the strategic planning, updates on that, updates on budget, where we're falling short, where we're exceeding. The STR implementation, we got a lot of good ordinances and that in place for STRs. I'd like to really see that come to fruition. I know that we're making good progress on that, but to me, that's what a very successful year for you looks like.
Okay, go ahead, Holly.
I think sort of, you know, the sort of smart and disciplined approach that the planning commission has had in terms of how we're kept informed of what's going on, just kind of spreading that out more broadly for the city is a great best practice. And then an engaged, motivated, humming staff that is encouraged to continue to bring great ideas forward, collaborate, and feel that they're part of something really great.
Russ, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with all the comments by my fellow council members, and the team itself really needs to have some inspired leadership. There's been a lot of events in the city over the past couple of years, which I think have created a culture in our city that needs to be looked at and needs to be improved. And I really look to the city manager to be the lead on that with policy guides from council. I would also say that, you know, to Councilmember Muncie's comment, Saugatuck's a community of overachievers. It's been that way for a long time, and I've sat at this table twice now, and many of the same issues we had 20 years ago, we still have today. So one of the things that I would really like to see at the end of the year is making sure we're staying within our mission as a city. We're a small city government. We have 11 full-time employees. We have a seasonal employees. We have a budget, you know, just shy of $2 million. And there's only limited things we can do with that staff. It's going to be difficult to grow beyond that because of the tax base and et cetera. So I think we need to be more careful about what we move on strategically. And it gets back to the strategic plan. What are we planning to? And that's something this council, with the new manager, I think needs to be focused on. So we're planning the appropriate things, so there's proper guidance. And I would like to see that done after the year.
Okay.
Mayor, building on that, that's something that I'm hoping to say very concretely in a year, is that after a diligent process of setting our expectations and goals for the year, after listening to our voters, that we can say we've made measurable and impactful progress on those goals. You know, obviously the manager reports to council and there's a level of accountability there towards those goals. But I would remind everyone that accountability works both ways.
Mhm.
And looking for a manager that's willing to hold council accountable to the plans that we set out. Because exactly like Councilmember Gardner has mentioned, we have very limited resources. And it's one thing to get a lot of things done, but getting the right things done is a lot more important. And so looking forward to improving our process in that direction.
And I will just add on, you know, to what everyone else said, just communicating with our public as much as possible. Really getting, you know, just keeping them apprised of our progress throughout the year and, you know, upcoming projects. So they, you know, are just engaged and know exactly what's going on. I think we do a great job with that, but I think we can always improve. And that's just one more thing that I think we could improve on in the future for the next year. Did you have anything else?
Just that, you know, a year from now, I'd like to hear that, and you've said it yourself as well, that I hear, you know, that you're improving, still working on relationships with our community members, our business owners, and our community members, and that grows. A year from now, I'd like to hear it from the street. People say, golly, I like that Ryan. He's a great city manager. That's what I'd like to hear a year from now.
Ryan, did you have any other questions?
That covers it, Mayor. So,
Okay, all right. If there's nothing else,
All right.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
So,
Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Does anyone else? Thanks, Ryan, so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Does anyone need a 5-minute break again, or would you like to? I mean, we have a little time before our next, we have a little time before our next interview, so. Okay, so our next interview is at 5 o'clock, so we can take a little bit of a break here.
Oh.
The microphone and video back on and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, that sounds great. We do have people online, so we always want to, let them know what we're up to. So we'll wait till right at 5 o'clock. It's awkward, but
So
yeah,
all good.
thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Did you drive in from New York or did you fly in
I-
from New York?
Finished some stuff up at the office yesterday and then drove across yesterday afternoon. So
Yeah, how was the drive?
it's not too bad. I cut through Ontario.
Yeah.
So as long as the borders cooperate,
Mhm.
I can usually do in about 5.5.
Okay, that's not
Not
bad.
bad at all. No, it was a lot better than when I was in Texas doing it. So.
Okay.
Indiana's a long state.
Yeah.
Just keeps
Very,
going.
very,
Yeah.
very long.
Mhm.
Don't mind us as we get ourselves
Oh, no,
prepared.
You're fine.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being online and for those in the audience who are taking part. We would like to welcome Michael Shahan. Is that how you pronounce your last?
Jahan, yes.
Shahan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to go through a series of questions that other candidates have answered as well, so you'll have the same questions that everyone else had. But we want to just start by saying we appreciate you taking the time to get to know our community. Let me put my glasses back on. And just, if you could just take about 2 to 3 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself, both personally and professionally.
So start personally, my name is Mike Shahan, 41 years old. I'm originally from Oakley, California, which is the East Bay area of Northern California. I'm married, my wife Katie, she's a labor and delivery nurse up in Muskegon. I have three children, Ava, 18, Gabby's 12, and Cooper's 5. I enjoy all outdoor activities, grew up surfing, snowboarding, love hiking, love the beach. We're a big beach family, so anything outdoors we absolutely love to do. Professionally, been in the Coast Guard 21 years. I'm going to be retiring this July. Had the privilege of being stationed all over the country, West Coast, East Coast, down the Gulf of Mexico, was down in the Caribbean for a few years. My last 10 years have been in a command position, so I've had the privilege of 2 commands. One of those was standing up and commissioning a unit on the Western Rivers for search and rescue and law enforcement activities. Hold a bachelor's degree from Troy University. I'm currently pursuing my MBA, about halfway through that. Just finished up my last 2 classes. Next term starts on Monday. So I'm the candidate class of 2025, and I'll be finishing that up in the spring.
All right, fantastic. Helen?
Not in, apologize, these questions are a little bit rote, but we ask the same questions of every candidate. So, not the third time I'm asking, it just feels funny to me, I guess, but not every decision you make turns out as planned. Sometimes there's disappointment along the way. Please share a time when a project you were involved in did not yield the results you had hoped for, and what did you learn from the process?
Thank you for that question. When I was down in Paducah, Kentucky, again, the Western Rivers, we would trailer our assets everywhere. We didn't have an actual marine facility set up, so our boats were out of the water. And during high water down on the Western Rivers, the water could flex anywhere from about 30 to 40 feet, which causes pretty extreme conditions for vessel traffic down there. And we had a refueling ship basically come alongside another vessel. And due to the currents and the flex in the water, that vessel actually ended up pitch poling, and the captain on board fell overboard. He ended up passing away, drowning in the river. We were getting some conflicting reports at the time, so I went down. This was in Wickliffe, Kentucky, where our boat ramp was. Went down to Wickliffe to see what the water levels were and see if we were able to get a boat in the water to assist with the recovery efforts, or at the time, search efforts, and then ultimately recovery efforts. So when I got there, just thinking I was going to take a look at the boat ramps, small city, probably a little bit smaller than Saugatuck here. There's about 700 people. Roads are blocked off and the community started gathering because this young gentleman was a pillar of the community. Everybody knew him. Parents grew up with the police chief. So immediately thrown into, where's the Coast Guard? What are we doing? We need your help. We need a boat. Was explaining to them, you know, due to the high water, we weren't safely able to get a boat in the water. And some of our policies do restrict us from actual body recovery unless it comes at a request that we're able to accommodate. So from that, a congressional complaint was made against the Coast Guard, specifically Station Paducah, that, you know, what's the Coast Guard doing? Why aren't their assets down here helping? And what I learned from that is people just want to be heard sometimes. And there's going to be times when everything's not great and you have to think on your feet and you have to think very quickly. So before we were briefing up Mitch McConnell's office, who was handling the complaints, I was talking with my captain and everything was very much kind of sidestepping the issue, you know? And so I was talking to the captain and said, how about you just let me explain what my thought process was, why we couldn't accommodate, and what all the factors were going into it. And she obliged. So as we were given this brief, you know, explaining my decision-making, and they were very receptive. And the sheriff down there in Ballard County was extremely receptive. And again, what I took from that is sometimes people just want to be heard. And when they're not being heard, that's when things tend to spiral out of control. And people tend to take the opposite route of, you know, being compliant and wanting to help out. So.
Thank you. Russ?
The city of Saugatuck is looking for a leader who will serve our community with exemplary leadership. Please share a time in the past 3 years that you went above and beyond to provide excellent leadership in your current position.
Yes, sir. So the last 3 years, one of the biggest things I'm proud of from a leadership standpoint is that we offer a program at all of my units for continuing education. And me and my command staff were able to work out implementing into our schedule time during the week, actually during the workday, for our members to pursue either certifications, continuing education, whether it be a college degree, whatever they're trying to pursue. And me being in school myself, have taken time out of my day. So I try to spend about 2 hours with them a week, tutoring, if you will, and helping them. A lot of these kids, you know, have done 4, 5, 6 years removed from high school, first time in college. So I really take pride in everybody around me succeeding. It's something I strive for, as leaders. I believe that's one of the most important things. When you put yourself before anybody on your staff, before a community, before the organization, that's when things tend to fail.
Holly?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
A resident just came into your office and confronted you with an unusually high water bill. Their monthly water bill was just over $500. In reviewing their previous 2 years of water bills, you note that the largest monthly bill they received was $180. Please share with us the steps you would take in considering their request to lower their bill from $500 to $180.
So thank you for, after review of all those bills and realizing that there could be a clerical error on our end from the city's end, that could be probably misread meter is what I would assume assume what that is. So from there, get with the Department of Public Works and who does the city billing, explain to them the situation, show them the research we've done, show them the data that supports it of, hey, we've looked at these bills. Can we look into this further? And whether that's getting somebody out to reread that meter, you know, sometimes commas get flexed left or right, one too many spots. So we'll start there. And once we get accurate reader meetings and make sure what type of error we're dealing with, we would pursue based off that information.
Okay, Logan?
Yeah. Saugatuck is a special place.
It is.
Our community is well known throughout the state and the Midwest. as an example of pure Michigan. While we certainly benefit greatly from tourism, our community desires to maintain our small town charm. What is your vision on how our community can promote tourism and still maintain our lovely haven we call home?
Great question. Thank you. Saugatuck's a gem. I think everybody knows that on the Western Lakeshore and throughout the state. It's Oval Beach, Mount Bald Head. It's a great place. Influx during the summertime, obviously it's about 865 full-time residents, somewhere in there. Balloons up to about 15,000 in the summertime. So huge influx. To maintain this small town charm, you don't want to lose it, right? Everyone doesn't want an Amazon distribution facility in their backyard, right? Google's not welcome everywhere. Social media, I think, is a great way to kind of sell that brand and attract people to Saugatuck. Looking at the Saugatuck Douglas Instagram page, there's about 1,400 followers, a little over 300 posts. I'm not sure when that site was established. And it's not that there's not a lot of information on there. It's just highlight the great aspects of this community and what makes it great. Small business, Oval Beach. I mean, one of the top 25 beaches in the country. I think that is what that last article was. So that's no surprise. It's really selling the small town charm of wanting to get people in here and wanting to maintain that. And it's when you start to lose the value of small business and the small town charm and economic development kind of goes sideways, that, some communities are forced to look at that economic development in a different way. Like I said, get an Amazon distribution center, whatever it may be. So really helping the community and exposing them to the rest of the state, rest of the country. And I think social media and the advances in technology are an absolutely wonderful way to do that.
Gregory?
Providing excellent customer service is critical in local government. We take great pride here in responding to our residents and our customers, we call them here. Please share a time when you were able to solve a challenging citizen or customer concern using excellent personal skills.
Excellent personal skills. Yes, sir. About 2017, it was July, August, summertime up in Grand Haven. Lots of boating traffic, lots of people out and about. Great time to be up there. One of the units that were out doing a patrol called in, said they had a possible boating under the influence. And from that, we found out that the gentleman on the boat was Michigan State Police. And it kind of gets weird a little bit, right? Law enforcement on law enforcement, you want to help people out, but at the same time, you have to draw that line and, hold the standard, if you will. So they called back to the unit. Gentleman's wife was, becoming extremely hostile and, not flashing the badge, but you know who my husband is type things, And it was right down the road from the station. So walked over there with the executive petty officers, second in command of the units, walked down there and basically just explained the situation to his wife, what was happening, why it was happening. Explained to the gentleman, even though he was state police, he knew exactly what was going on. And just by the way we handled that with his wife, put him, imagine a police officer in handcuffs, being calm and explaining to his wife of, please, honey, these guys are just doing their job. They're doing it great. They're doing it professionally. Let them. So he basically diffused the situation for us in handcuffs just by the way we were treating, his wife and the rest of the people on the boat.
Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As we review your resume, we note several excellent accomplishments. Please describe two of your proudest professional accomplishments.
So two of my proudest moments in the Coast Guard is one, obtaining my officer in charge certifications. It's a lengthy process, very similar to this. It's a 2-board panel. Covers about 3 months, and it covers everything from organizational policy, leadership, how you would run a unit, what's your command philosophy. everything's kind of in an interview. And you do that while working, while attending school, while still, trying to make all the kids' events, and maintaining your home life. So that was by far one of the proudest moments I've had. Second was earning my degree and then making the decision to pursue my MBA. It's not easy, if anybody's done it, to work full-time in a career and go to college at the same time. So being able to, maintain a 3.8 GPA and then make the decision to go on and get my MBA, which I'm currently at a 4.0 in, is just, it's something I never thought I could do, not something I thought I would ever do. And it's something that, I think about often. It's very proud.
Fantastic. So what is it about the city of Saugatuck that drew you to apply to serve as the city manager?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So I received orders to Grand Haven in 2015. Everybody, I was out on the West Coast at the time. Everybody said, "Who'd you upset?" Me. Right? California kid going to Michigan. Didn't know what to expect. So when I got to Grand Haven, the Kalamazoo River here is actually in our area of responsibility.
Okay.
So first boat ride, went down to Holland, checking out our AOR there, and then we came down Kalamazoo River, popped in, and here's this little oasis. And it's like, all right, what's this place? Saugatuck. All right, what's here? We got Oval Beach, got hiking, got all these cool shops. Okay, chain ferry, all these things. So it was a beautiful place. So when I got home, talked to my wife, I was like, hey, we should go check out Saugatuck, go see, grab lunch, see what's going on down there. And I think you just need to be here about 5 minutes to realize what an amazing place it is. It really is. People are friendly, and if anybody's ever been out to the Napa Valley of California, I was telling Mr. Frank Walsh, it very much reminds me of that, because it's this little gem away from the hustle and bustle of the Tri-Cities. You got Grand Rapids and the traffic and the honking and all these crazy things that go, and then you just have Saugatuck where you can relax, and you have shops and arts and restaurants, and you have the marina, and you guys have all these festivals that we put on throughout the year. And it like I said, it doesn't take long to fall in love with it. So when I saw you guys were looking for a city manager, and I was looking through it, it really started to check a lot of my boxes on what I was looking for. Being in command and working in small cities, Youngstown, New York is where I'm at currently. It's about 1,800 people. I work with the city council and the mayor and city administrators quite a bit. So being able to have that interaction and kind of knowing what that entails is very intriguing to me. Public service, it's what I love to do. It's why I stayed in the military for 21 years. I love to serve communities. I love to serve people. The small staff, 11 people. I'm big on leadership and development. I tell my staff all the time, growth professionally and personally. Whether that's pursuing a degree, whether that's learning to play a sports. If you play, for the younger guys, it's, get the high score in Call of Duty. If that's your thing, then that's your thing, but always strive to be better. And I find with smaller staffs, you have that ability to have that immediate imprint. Not that you can't do it on a larger scale, but being able to know people on an intimate level and being able to help them grow and develop is something that I want to continue to do.
Helen?
What is the most useful criticism you ever received, and what did you learn from it?
So when I made chief petty officer, you have something called a chief's mess. You go through an initiation. It's called a CCTI, Chief's Call to Initiation. And a mentor of mine told me, when you're in a room and you have all these other chiefs and you have admirals and you have captains and you have all these heavy hitters, if you will, don't speak just to speak. Listen. And when you have something valuable to add to the conversation, add it. But don't just talk because you're a chief and you're in this position and you feel you need to speak. And at first it was like, well, that's what's good about being a chief now. You get to talk and people are going to listen to you, But going through Chiefs calls all these years, really realizing that holds a lot of weight. And again, as much as it is for people want to be heard and listen, it's the same concept when you're amongst your peers, when you're amongst your staff, is when you're just talking, nobody else is getting a word in. So you might not be able to identify what that problem is, or what staff members having an issue, or what projects we're lacking on, because you're just on your soapbox talking. So add value when it's needed, not just to do it.
Great
Thank you.
answer.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Russ.
As you ponder the future of Saugatuck, in your opinion, what are the three most important things that the city council should consider addressing in a future planning retreat?
So the three, just to clarify, sir, the three major issues.
Yeah, the three most important things that the city council should consider addressing in a future planning retreat.
Okay. Economic development being the first. I think economic development is important, just to help small businesses around here and help the community, maintain, revenue. So always looking at ways to improve the economy. Environmental, preservation is huge with the dunes being here, Mount Baldhead, Oval Beach. Planet's not making any more land, so we need to find a good way to preserve the natural resources that we do have here in the community. What are the best ways to go about it? It's not something that you set and forget. It's something that you have to constantly, it's a strategic planning thing, but there's also a lot of day-to-day tactical planning and execution that needs to go along with that. And then the third thing is promotion of the city. I know that kind of goes hand in hand with economic development, but what can we do as a city to ensure that we're growing at a pace that is comfortable with everybody? And that's city leaders, the community, businesses, people looking to come here, people that look to do business here. How are we growing, and how are we doing that growing, and how do we secure that funding without bankrupting ourselves? So there's a lot of creative ways through grants, public funding, federal funding, state funding, that we need to be looking at to help not only our budget, but help augment things so we can continue to grow. But like I said, grow at a pace that's comfortable to everybody.
Holly?
Our new city manager will need to be a regional voice and foster excellent relationships with our neighboring communities. Please share a collaborative experience that you have led with an adjacent community.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So down in Paducah, when we commissioned Station Paducah, we were in Kentucky. We bordered Missouri, Tennessee, and we had about 13 counties that we also bordered and we worked in. But we went as far south as down to Guntersville, Alabama. So when you get 13 counties, 4 states involved in planning and operations, it can get a bit sticky. And when we first got there and we were standing up, a lot of tension between federal, state, county, city. Everybody wants to have their hand in the pot. Everybody wants to have a say. So something we did up at Grand Haven was called a ResCom meeting. It's basically a resolution communications meeting. You get everybody in the same room and you talk. What do we have available? What do you guys have available? What do we bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? So we had representatives from Tennessee, Illinois, Kentucky, and about six of those counties, if I'm remembering correctly. And once we all got in the same room and we started discussing capabilities and what the vision was and what we're planning to do and where now the Coast Guard fits in Middle America on the Western Rivers, we started getting a lot of traction on some things. And biggest thing we got from that was federal funding at the state and city level. So right across the river in Illinois, we were able to help them do some research, get a proposal sent up, And through DHS, they were able to secure funding every year for they call it a fireboat, but the federal funding comes in is that it is basically going to be a search and rescue asset as well to help augment us. So just by all of us getting in the room and setting up these meetings, we do them about monthly, and having that collaboration, after the first few, you start to lose the barriers of your city, your state, your federal, and you realize you're all swimming in the same pool and you all have the same goals. So that was a pretty proud accomplishment to be able to get that many partners from all levels of government on the same page.
Logan?
Thank you. Financial stewardship is critical to our operations. Have you had an opportunity to review our annual budget? And if so, did anything stand out to you after your review?
I have looked over the budget, right around 5.6 million for the fiscal year. Look through your strategic plan, and there's not anything really that pops out in a negative fashion. When you deal with budgets, I find the data analysis is very important. Looking at the last, few years, looking at what fixed costs there are, what variable costs there are, what are we planning to do, what upgrades across all departments. So really taking the time not to just throw a budget together and say, hey, this is what sounds good and we're going to throw it at the wall and hope it sticks, but really getting all players involved, all departments, and saying like, hey, okay, what are some things you're seeing for next year that we're going to need? Some things, big ticket items we know we're going to need every year, year after year, and make sure we're securing those things relatively early in the year. Being federal government, working through continuing resolutions, unfortunately, has been a aspect of my life the last few years. So making sure you're not just blowing through money, and whatever we have on that strategic plan, we're hitting the mark. And always, again, budgets aren't, again, you don't set them and forget them. Something we make, and then we're going to be reviewing them constantly, looking at projects. Where can we minimize costs? Where can we, filter money in and out, grants, proposals from different, from the state, from the federal government? Where can we kind of augment that budget? So.
Gregory?
Many of the projects we have here, we hope to achieve over the next 5 years involve grant writing and economic development. If you notice, we've got lots of projects going on right now. Please detail your current and or previous experience in grant writing and successful development projects.
Yes, sir. So most of the grants that we write at the federal level are internal because we're securing federal funds outside of our own operating budget. So at the 2 units, my last 2 units, Paducah and then Niagara, we have end-to-end ownership of all market research, writing up the scope of work, the proposals, having those submitted. And then once those are submitted, we don't do the actual bidding or the accepting of bids. But once those bids are accepted, we then at the unit level work directly with contractors on the scope of work. And it's almost a daily thing. Right now, we have a $70,000 asbestos abatement and floor retiling going on, and then a $1.7 million waterfront renovation because we have high water on the Niagara River. So we did all the market research, all the writing for that. Like I said, scope of work, look at the different companies. And it's, as you guys know, with all the projects you have going on in the city, it's again, a daily job, not something you set and forget. So it's something you have to constantly be looking at and making sure that we're, one, getting the best price and our money's being maximized in the most efficient ways.
Scott?
Fast forward to May 2025. It is time for the city council to evaluate your first year as our city manager. Please share with us what you hope to have accomplished in your first year in office.
Yes, sir. My first year is really building on the relationships of the city, getting to know everybody, getting to know the business owners, getting to know the residents. I have an open door policy in my current job. I've had one ever since I took command, and it's not something I just say. It's not a cool buzzword or something you have to say. So in that first year, really helping the city bridge some of the gaps and struggles that might be happening currently, listening to the business owners and what can we do to better help them? What are some things we're falling short on? And then listening to the residents as well. I mean, what can we do to help better serve the community? And I hope at the end of that first year that the consensus is, Mike is here to listen, he's here to help, and he's doing that through action and not just sitting at a podium speaking. It's something we're physically seeing. And that's not to have this place be the Wonka, the chocolate factory. Come in, go to the office, talk to us, let us know what the problems are. I tell my staff now, if there's problems and I don't know about them, I can't begin to fix them. I'm a firm believer, communication and leadership, we can accomplish just about anything.
Good.
Thanks, sir.
When you consider all of the components of municipal management, what one area do you believe you truly excel in? And what area do you continue to seek improving?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Leadership, active listening, and creative problem solving is where I excel. I truly believe that. If you're not hearing the problems, then can't begin to fix them. And then creative problem solving. Big believer in old ways don't open new doors. So being able to look at a problem holistically and say, hey, this is where we can go with it. This is where we need to go with it. Getting everybody's input. And through that leadership and communication, again, building on those things, there's really not much as a city, an organization that you can't accomplish or you can't fix. And then some things to improve on from a municipal standpoint is I don't know every aspect of municipal government. I don't. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend tell you guys that I do. Is getting out and understanding exactly what Department of Public Works does. You guys, what are your goals? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What keeps you guys up at night? And how I can come in and help you guys remedy some of these things, and then expand on the greatness that's already here. So working on that is just getting out in the community, getting out with these different departments, grasping on to what I don't understand. I'm not a person, I don't fear what I don't understand. I want to tackle it head on. So I dive right in and start to learn, so.
What do you consider to be the most innovative idea or project that you've brought to fruition during your career?
Yes, ma'am. Most innovative that I thought was pretty awesome was the expansion of social media when it really started to come about and gain traction. Obviously, as a government entity, you guys realize when social media first came about, it probably wasn't the most friendly government tool, and especially at the federal level, people were like, okay, let's stay off Facebook, let's stop doing these things. So we were able, with the Public Affairs Office, really work out policy on how to have units utilize it was primarily Facebook at the time, to better serve the communities that they're in. So if you look out on the West Coast at surf stations, they're in remote areas. There's not a lot of medical services. There's not a lot of things out there to help in the event of a disaster. So basically helping design this policy that allowed units to have Facebook, and it's not to post, look what we're doing on the rec deck at Friday at 5, but it was really to put weather conditions, local things that were going on in the area. We got Safe Boating Week coming up next week at the end of May. So really promoting those things and getting, primarily fishermen out west, really to kind of embrace us, But who wants to roll up to the Coast Guard station, knock on the front gate and start talking? You know, not a lot of people. So by allowing units to have these Facebook pages and now Instagram, Twitter or X, I think it really has helped the service quite a bit. So being able to be a part of that policy writing was pretty special.
Great.
Thank you.
So this next one I have Holly taking number 17, if you could.
Yep. Every community, regardless of size or location, can experience conflict. Everyone recognizes that serving a group of 7 elected officials can be a daunting task. In your experience, how do you best manage city council conflict?
Or something similar.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking, of course. 7 personalities, 7 different views, 7 different goals, even though the common goal is the success of the city. I have no doubt that every person sitting at this table has a unique vision. My job is not being an elected official and being bipartisan in this whole thing is to help you guys along in that conflict. What is the problem, right? So first we have to identify what that problem is and why are we butting heads on it? Why is there friction? Why are we not seeing eye to eye? And really keeping cooler heads prevail. Not to be cliche, but it's true. So allowing people to argue and fight and because they want to be heard isn't going to accomplish anything. And most of the time when that's happening, we lose sight of the ultimate goal. So how I manage that, I'm the voice of reason. I'm here to mitigate things. I'm here to listen to you guys and I'm here to give suggestions. Be that outside looking in on a political problem, if you will. I've been in government for 21 years, obviously at the federal level, but I've seen my share of friction and, you know, unfortunately yelling and desk pounding and, you know, things that don't happen in this room.
No.
But I'm here to be that, here
at me for?
to be that mitigator. Leadership goes a long way and that leadership doesn't just extend to the community, leadership goes up and down. And even though you guys are the 7 sitting at the table, does not mean that my leadership and development experience doesn't extend to you and the issues you may be having as a council.
Okay. And then Russ has the last question here.
Yeah, the city manager plays many roles. How would you educate council members on the charter and ordinances to keep them updated on legalities when making decisions of the city?
Good question. Thank you. First is familiarizing yourself with those ordinances. What kind of ordinances are we discussing at that given time? And then really digging in to the ordinance to identify, one, is there any problem? Historically, has there been a problem with the ordinance? Is there community outrage at the ordinance? Is there a more stiffer approach they want to take to an ordinance? And then from a legal aspect, is really, again, just the data analysis of everything. What legal binds do we see with this ordinance? What problems do we see with these? So my job with that really is just to bring it to you guys with what I see, problems, but also solutions. These are the legal implications that we may run into, and these are ways that we can mend those out and get this ordinance in place. Or if it's an ordinance that is just getting complete pushback from the city, whether that's from businesses or, you know, private citizens, gather that information and see why it's happening. And then again, what solution we can get to. My goal with anything, whether it be city ordinance, legal issues in any capacity, is not just to dump them on the floor here and say, hey, here's our problem. What do you guys suggest? I will bring you the problems. I will bring you the solutions from my point of view. And then collectively, that's the good thing about 7 council members, a mayor and a city manager, is that there's a lot of experience in the room. And there's a lot of ways that we can fix problems. So my job is to get the foundation of that together, and then we can collectively tackle those issues.
Well, we're about to wrap things up,
Yes, ma'am.
but if you could just take 2 or 3 minutes and tell us why you feel you're the right fit and the ideal candidate to lead the city of Saugatuck.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Like I said, public service is something I've done my whole adult life. I didn't stay in the Coast Guard because I was going to get rich by any stretch of the imagination. I did it because I love the communities that I served. I love the people I work with, and I really believed in the mission that we do. And when you talk about Saugatuck, this is a place I enjoy being. I believe in what's happening here. I believe in the small town charm. I believe in the diversity and the inclusion that this community shows everybody. I think it's just an amazing place to be, and it feels right. You know, it's when I decided to retire from the Coast Guard and I put my letter for retirement in, really didn't search for jobs for about the first 30 days because I was kind of in this panic of like, oh no, am I doing the right thing? Looked at a lot of jobs. Some I've applied to, some just I didn't. I've had interviews. Some have gone well. Others didn't have that feeling. And I will tell you, when I saw the city manager job, especially in the positions I'm in right now in small city government, it felt right. And it still feels right to this very moment. So it's I'm a hard charger. I love the communities. I love helping people. And I will always have the best interest, not only of you guys and your policies, but best interest of the city and state is mine as well.
Do you have any questions for us?
Madam Mayor, I really don't, no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
We
thank you.
appreciate it so much. It was really nice to have you here.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. So at this point, we can entertain a motion, but we could also have discussion after the motion. If you would choose to do that.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to extend a conditional offer of employment to Ryan Cummins to serve as Saugatuck City Manager, contingent on a successful background check and contract negotiations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Sure. I'm not ready. I'm just not ready yet. I think that, I think we owe it to our candidates as well as our residents to sleep on it, to think about it, and to come back and vote on it. I'd like to go back over the videos. There were two in particular that, I really, really like. But one of them I felt interviewed a lot better than the other, a lot better than I thought. It's hard for me to make that decision right now.
Okay.
How many days do we have?
120.
And how many days are we in? Do we know?
I think we're at,
We're over 90.
we're
But
over
we
90
do have an
days.
interim manager in right now, right?
We have to have, by our charter requires that we hire a city manager 120 days after the other one departs.
So I think we're probably, we're heading into Memorial Day.
Tice's last day was just like middle of February. Yeah. So we're,
30 days.
So we do have 30 days then. Okay.
less than.
Yeah.
We have less than a month, this
Right.
Memorial Day weekend coming.
Good.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I'll say all three candidates were absolutely excellent.
I absolutely- I
I
agree
was
with them
so
100%.
impressed
Yep.
with all three of the candidates. And frankly, West Michigan is blessed to have three individuals that want to serve the community, in any community in West Michigan. So I have no doubt that any of these three we will be hearing about them in the future somewhere in West Michigan, if that's truly where they want to be. And makes me happy as a Michigander to know that we've got quality people like this that want to step up and engage in public service. With that, though, I do think, given the time and place we are as a city, I do think Mr. Cummins is the right fit, and I'm prepared to support that nomination.
So I would like to say, if I may, just
Okay.
because I did make the motion. I want to thank Mr. Walsh for bringing three excellent candidates. Any one of them is a standout prospect. Ryan, to me, is the best fit for several reasons. One, let's just set aside the great work he's done as our interim city manager, because that's an advantage that he has over the other candidates that we can't know. That's an important thing to know. He's already tested, and so that's important to know, and I don't want to take that away from him, but let's just set that aside. The biggest thing that I'm looking for is somebody with a lot of planning and zoning experience. Ryan's got that in spades. If we're going to get into any kind of trouble in city, it's going to be in planning and zoning. And I think that that's been borne out over on any kind of matters, short-term rentals, waterfront, houseboat litigation, all these things. So planning and zoning is key, and he's got that on lock. Also, I think that he's got a really good background, especially with law enforcement, and in a long background. That enables him to do things that I've seen, I've gotten to see, that he applies rules fairly and consistently. I think that good city government is predictable, not political, and he's shown that, and I have a lot of respect for that. He is absolutely the right person at the right time for us.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I agree with Councilmember Muncy. This is a very important decision for the city. I heard some very good answers to some very difficult questions today. And was quite surprised actually by some of what I heard today. But that also puts me in a position of thinking, okay, what is the best fit here? And I think to make an immediate decision about it would be disrespectful to myself as well as our community, as get some feedback in terms of what we heard today, because I'm sure some people can be very intrigued by the answers to the questions. And with that posting, I know a lot of people will be looking at it, and I'd love to hear some feedback. I'm not ready to support this motion today.
Holly?
Yeah, I am ready to support it. I mean, I really liked all three of the candidates and thought each of them had some great answers, and they all prepared well. I thought Will was another very strong candidate. I liked that, like Ryan, he's got experience as an elected, appointed, and staff person. I think that's just awesome, because they really see things. So I guess he would be a good, I think, he would be a good number two, from my perspective. I think what we've been able to see in Ryan in the last 3 months is somebody who was performing incredibly well in his planning and zoning job, then just kick into an amazing gear city manager. I mean, what city council gets from the city manager is night and day, and was almost immediate. I mean, the budget, the packets, the city manager's report that has been updated with meaningful updates. So I think his job performance is outstanding. I have a strong bias to promote from within, because I think that sends a really strong message to staff about their opportunities in the city. I think he's been a great leader. I've had several staff people talk to me about what a great leader he's been and how much already in the short time they've learned from him. And I think that's really important, especially coming from where we've been. You look at the research, it takes people about a year. Some people will say 9 months, but like the Gallup research is, it's a year before people really fully, are fully productive in a new position. And so, Ryan does bring the benefit, one, of knowing the city because he's been here, but he's been doing this job and doing it well. I've had several people in the community. In fact, I've had coffee with somebody this morning who sort of out of the blue and talk about what's going on. I said, the city manager search, and she said, she said, Ryan is terrific. She worked with the History Center on the history
The
blurbs
displays,
around town.
yeah,
It's like, he met us at 6 a.m. to go, to look at sites, moving lights. So I know that, especially in planning and zoning, you're saying no to people a lot. And what I do actually value about him is he does enforce our ordinances. And I know that, there, has not always gotten rave reviews, but he's got integrity, I think, in spades. I trust him. I think in addition to his other experience, I think law enforcement, social services, I think he's a compassionate, smart, thoughtful, and fair person. And I think he's a good leader. So, I also thought Will was really good, but I think, in a close call, and I wouldn't call it a tie. I think even apart from Ryan's experience, I would still gravitate to him because I think he has a breadth of experience that I think is valuable. But then add on to that everything I've just talked about. It's I think he would be a fine city manager.
Okay. Anyone?
Yeah, I just would follow up. I kind of anticipated this is where this was going to go today. I'll be voting no on this motion for two reasons. One is I just would like some more time to reflect on what we heard today, as well as get some feedback from people that may have been here today to kind of hear what they thought. Again, as I said, we heard some really good things today, and this is one of the most important decisions we make as a council. And I want time to actually reflect and, consider what I heard today before making that decision. Two is, again, I'm not voting against Ryan as a potential city manager or city employee. I think he's been a great employee, is a great employee, has worked hard to fulfill the expectations of an interim city manager under difficult circumstances. However, I'm not sure that he is the person who's the right fit for the position of city manager. His interview today was good. I appreciate hearing what but again, time to reflect on that. I think the city looks for some very particular things that I want to see from our city manager. If the motion passes and Ryan does in fact become the city manager, I will support him 100%. That support must include a council-led process to ensure that he is managed appropriately and receives the support needed to ensure his success. That support includes, but is not limited to, a bi-directional evaluation process, including a 360 feedback review, goal setting and measurable objectives, and the training and mentoring needed to ensure he grows into the position.
Just a quick build on that. I would argue, Russ, I agree that we need to really manage our city manager well, but that's really on council, not on the city manager. So, I think it is important, whomever we hire, that, we have clear goals, that staff have clear goals, that, there's a process for all of that, but that's really on council to ensure that we put that into place. And I know we're going to be talking about our HR policies. That's going to come to a workshop. And that will be important for us to set the boundaries and the guidelines for that.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I agree with Russ. I have to say that we deserve to give a little bit more time. I would like to hear some feedback as well of how these interviews went. I think a good second was, my good second was Michael. I will absolutely support any one of these gentlemen that we were to hire. I think they all did a great job. I think Mr. Dean was absolutely right. They all did a great job interviewing. I think that Mike answered every question with an example, and I really appreciated that. Of course, working with Brian, you all know, I gave him an A+++ on that budget. I think he'll do a great job with our guidance, as we go through our HR and make sure that we build a better, job description together, and as we go forward with whoever. But I unfortunately will be voting no, because I think this vote is too quick. I think we deserve it just to give ourselves a little bit of time to think about it. I thought to myself, it'd be nice to go back over when this is loaded up on YouTube and just sit back at home, look at my notes and go over this again. So I need a little more time. So I'm not voting no because I don't like Ryan. I think he's done a great job. I think he's one of the best employees that I've seen here in a long time since I've lived here in Saugatuck. But I just feel that we deserve, we owe it to everyone to think a little bit more about it.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry, Logan
look, go
hasn't
ahead,
spoken
Logan.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I share the call for a little more time. I'm very grateful to be in a position that I honestly didn't know that we would be in right now. To have so many quality candidates applying for this job, very grateful for that. I have to disagree a little bit with the emphasis on the planning and zoning knowledge. From my perspective, leadership positions are much more about a little bit of knowledge in a lot of different areas. And then additionally, much more importantly, the ability to interface with the different stakeholders, and share a call to bring everyone together and remind everybody of the importance of what we're doing and to measure against the goals in the strategic plan. I was extremely impressed with Michael's interview. To me, that position is someone who's going to be listening to all of us, and his ability to listen to our questions in the entirety of it and then respond extremely accurately to the questions that we asked with very compelling examples showed to me someone who will succeed immensely in both customer service, but also bringing the different competing groups together. He's used to conflict. He's used to having to lead in challenging situations. Whether he's the exact right candidate right now, I honestly can't say. But I think that demonstration of those skills was so significant that he deserves further consideration for that.
I guess I would
Wait,
say,
Helen's next.
go ahead, Helen, sorry.
okay.
No, please.
No, and what I don't want to do is belabor a point. I know at some point we're going to be talking about the same themes over and over again. Before, like I was trying to say, like, it's hard to set aside what Ryan's already done for us, but we all shouldn't have to do that. I mean, he has been a proven leadership. He stepped up in a very critical time. We have been so fortunate to have this, and this is a nice problem to have, but he is proven, he is tested. We know exactly what we're getting, and I can't think of any way, and I work with him very closely. I don't have anything that I just sit back and go, wow, he really dropped the ball on this. And that's really hard to say because I'm pretty critical, is a general trait. We're very lucky to have him. I think in any corporate role, he would have been hired without us even seeking outside candidates. We did look outside, and I agree that it was the right thing to do. That's a municipal government. That's our role. And I'm glad, I thought we had good candidates. There is nobody here that I would take over Ryan.
Well,
Go ahead, Scott.
just to build on this, I mean, I respect my colleagues' desire for more time. Having said that, I think we also owe these three gentlemen a decision. We've already made our views clear as a council. I think everyone's sort of signaled, or many of us have more than signaled our take on these three candidates. So I think they're probably all in tremendous demand in West Michigan. I don't see how the outcome would change in the benefit of more reflection. I think we made it clear. I think we made it clear to the candidates where our preferences lie. So I think we owe them a decision today.
Go ahead, Helen.
So one thing, just building on what Logan was saying about Mike, I liked him too, although I am concerned he doesn't have any municipal experience, but that, I could get on. The one thing though, at the end, he didn't have any questions for us. And that I really, when I interview people, one of the most important questions is what questions they ask, and that he didn't have any was at least a pink flag for me. I would, so I think if we took the vote now, it would be 4-3. I don't know that because I haven't asked Lauren, but I think there's a good chance that it would be that. And that it does not sit well with me. I would like us to have more, I would like it to be a more robust vote for whomever we hire. And I agree with Scott that, it's tough to, I think the expectation is that we would vote. So a couple of things. One is to consider withdrawing the motion and setting a date. But if we do, I think we need to do it. We need to say when we are going to meet so that it's a time bound. And I'm not sure how I feel about that yet, but I don't, I want whomever, well, assuming, I would want Ryan to feel like he had the support of council.
So I'll weigh in here. As the mayor, I had an opportunity to work with a couple of different city managers. I've been on city council now for 4 years. Ryan Cummins came in to a really terrible situation. And I came to him on day one with a list of questions that I had saying, where are we on about 10, 15 different projects? I said, listen, I know you have a lot on your plate. You're the planning and zoning administrator. And now you're stepping into this interim city manager position. Just when you can, if we can get an update on all of these things. Within the next day, he had an answer on everything that basically had been kind of up in the air for a little bit. He is one of the most organized people that I've worked with. He can multitask like anybody I've seen. As far as the amount of projects that we have in the city, as Gregory mentioned earlier, can we get all, before we start anything new? He was able to handle all of these things and get me answers on a lot of things that were a little bit up in the air. I agree. I want to have a consensus so we all have the full support. If we end up waiting on this, I don't think it would change the vote. I fully support Ryan Cummins. I believe staff supports Ryan Cummins. And I don't think the vote would change. So we're just, making this, we're kicking the can down the road, if you will, to vote on this at a later time. I appreciate wanting to have more time to think about this, but I don't think it would change the vote. I would be in favor of, moving forward with this, but understand where you guys are coming from as far as, wanting to think about this for a little bit longer. If we were to do that, it would be next week at our city council meeting. That would be after Memorial Day. So Memorial Day is Monday. We have our planned meeting on the 29th, which is Wednesday or Thursday? Wednesday. So it would be, we can either take a vote tonight and move forward, or we're waiting until the Wednesday, after Memorial Weekend.
Madam Mayor, the vote isn't going to change. The result is going to be the result. And I think we owe it to the gentlemen that we're here to move this forward. We are all, there are at least 4 of us for sure that are locked in. And I think that the other 3 really appreciate Ryan and the great job that he's done. But I just can't see sending everybody off to another week of ambivalence when we've got real work to do here. And it's just time to make decisions.
I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem. We're not being more deliberative. We're just creating drama if we don't vote.
Go ahead.
Not trying to create any drama. That's certainly not what any of that's about. Like I said, I'd like to hear a little bit from our constituents and think about it. Like I said, I'd like to watch the video again, and go over the interview again. And that's just me. It's not about trying to create drama, not trying to kick the can down the road. And again, I will repeat, I support Ryan Cummins. I think he's one of the best employees I've seen here in the city in a long time. I'm not ready to make that decision right now.
I'm prepared to support Ryan Cummins as our city manager if this board chooses to vote in that direction. I am a little frustrated that we are so incurious to hear what our constituents are interested in. And I'm also frustrated with the comments surrounding this discussion referencing the actual discussions that took place in this room so little.
Wait, can
would-
you say, I didn't hear.
Say
the
that
end of
last part again.
I'm frustrated that the comments around this discussion have focused on what happened in this room today so little. So that's what I'll say.
Oh, you mean as far as the interviews?
Yes.
And how people performed in their interviews?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just hesitant to compare and contrast individuals because they all have tremendous skill sets, tremendous merits. And for me, I feel the most appropriate thing because honestly, I believe any community in West Michigan could benefit from any one of these three gentlemen. I think any corporation in West Michigan would be well served by hiring any one of these three gentlemen. I think and it's true, it is difficult. We have we have an embarrassment of riches in this community, not only in our financial security and our what we're doing on infrastructure. How many times did all three of them say small town charm? I mean, they all saw that. That's why they wanted to be part of this. But I don't want to criticize or make complaints about anyone's interview style or process or how they did or didn't answer a question because, they really all are excellent. So I don't want to get into that. But once again, I'll just keep it simple. I think Mr. Cummins is the right man at the right time in the right place for Saugatuck.
Yeah, I would say, I think everyone did an excellent job and I agree that, clearly there was, how do I put this? There's strong second place and I feel like all three would be, excellent leaders, definitely excellent leaders. I agree that Ryan Cummins has the experience for what we need in our city. As far as, coming from a place where we have so much to do with the short-term rentals and our waterfront development, there's so much going on when it comes to planning and zoning. I just felt like his experience in that regards is going to be extremely helpful for us. Having other people come in and having to catch up on a lot of those things. I just felt like Ryan Cummins would be he came to the forefront when it came to my decision on who I wanted in that position.
Yeah, for me, I think I can sum up where I am in three things. One, I do feel very strongly about promoting for men whenever we can. We know what we have. I don't know about the rest of you who have hired, but I've hired, dozens of people over my career, some of whom I loved in the interview and didn't work out. Some who, were okay and other people felt more strongly about, and I thought, who proved to be really good. It's a crapshoot. Truly. And so it's huge that we actually know how he performs. I think that's regardless of how much more reflection I could do or the strengths and weaknesses. And then the other thing is he's already, this much up to speed. We've got a lot of really important big projects going on, and he's already up to speed, and he surprised us for the better. I think we were all blown away, for example, by the budget. So he's demonstrated that he can go above and beyond. That said, I hear what you guys are saying. I really do. And I wish, I would love for this to be a unanimous vote.
Well, Mayor, with that, I think we've all said our piece. I would like to call the question on the vote that's before us.
All right. Go ahead, Jamie.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
No.
Muncy,
No.
Stanton,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate all the discussion on this and I hope we all fully support. Ryan, this will be contingent on a successful background check and contract negotiations. So that's still the case. And, you know, I think that's why it's so important to have strong candidates, a nice list of strong candidates, because things change after these negotiations. So we'll keep that in mind. At this time, it's time for public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to speak, anyone in the audience? Okay, Mark, you might as well. You're here. Yeah.
Mark Klungel, 747 Water. Say, we all like Ryan, we've all worked with him. But on the other hand, I would think you're elected officials and you have constituents out there that would like some input through this process, and you haven't touched base with them because we're just fresh out of an interview process where everybody's seen that. The four that voted for this, it's been preconceived. You've been there since before the other guy staggered off. So I don't understand where this is all coming from, because from the outside looking in, there's 7 people here, and Ryan has served those 7 people very well, very well. He focuses on those 7 people, but there are another 800 people out there. You need to talk to them. Ryan says one of the things, he's been here for almost 2 years, I think. He wants to meet the constituents someday. He's hoping he'll have time to do that. But when will that happen? From the outside, he's not that approachable. He's always busy with city council things. He served 7 people very well. But there are a lot of other people in this city that you need to take a look and get their input. So that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
All right, Mark,
Thanks,
thank
Mark.
you so
Mark.
much. If there's no one else in the audience, is there anyone online? Of course, Dan Fox, go ahead. Jamie's going to unmute you right now. And there you go.
I unmuted myself.
There you go.
Long
If you
process.
can go ahead, Dan, and introduce yourself and where you live.
Sorry, Dan Fox, Saugatuck, City of Saugatuck. A long process, a long meeting, a lot of thoughtful comments. I guess my only frustration is, and I really do, I share a lot of people's high regard for Ryan and for his performance in his planning commission role and his performance in grabbing the reins from the fellow that Mark just mentioned or referred to. My kind of issue is if we knew that, and I think we did, going in, we just threw away $10,000. And I don't know, I wouldn't go so far as to say wasted other people's time. But if I was one of the 2 candidates, I would be more than a little upset, feeling that perhaps not that put too fine a point on it, but that that the fix was in, that I wasted my time coming from Wayland or from New York, wherever he came from, the Coast Guard guy. And I just think that's a shame. I guess I'm not really pointing fingers. But it makes the process seem like it wasn't necessary. We didn't need a search. We didn't need a search firm. Because we ended out where I think many of you, and I might even put myself in that group, thought we were going to end up with in the first place. So anyway, more frustration than anything else. So thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dan.
Anyone else online wish to speak? All right, no one, Jamie? All right, correspondence, I know we had some earlier, but those will probably be in the next packet, Jamie. Okay, And now on to council comments. If we could start with Holly.
I'm really impressed with the candidates. I'm glad we heard from them and, congratulations to Mr. Cummins, assuming he gets through, the last 9 yards. And again, I hear and, respect what what the council members who wished for more time. I do think, I certainly heard from people in this process. So I feel confident, that I've listened and I've certainly heard comments, that echo what Mr. Klungel has said. I think for me to vote differently I would have had to been, I would have had to have liked somebody better. And it was close, but I'm very excited about our new city manager.
Russ?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Humbled to be a part of this process, and again, appreciate the council comments as well as the public comments on this process. And assuming that we make it through the background check and contract negotiations successfully, I look forward to continuing to work with Ryan in that position and finding the ways that we need to find to make him successful as a council. That's really back to the earlier comment that was made by Councilmember Anderson. It is incumbent on this council to take that leadership role with the manager. It's something we missed with the previous manager. We need to do better by our staff. And I look forward to being in that position with Ryan, assuming he makes it through the process. Appreciate being here today.
Helen?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the comments from council. I appreciate the candidates. Our recruiter heard from several constituents. A lot of people have had a lot of experience with him. And I'm glad that he's been through as much as he has with us and is still up for the position. And I think it shows a lot. And I'm very excited to be working with him going forward.
Yeah.
Scott?
Well, I would just point out that the 4 candidates, 3 of whom came for interviews, their resumes and details about them were presented by Mr. Walsh at a previous meeting. They've been in the packet. I've certainly heard from a number of constituents on their impressions. I did not see anything in the in-person interviews that would have changed anyone's view based on this. And I guess I'm a bit perplexed why folks think more time. We got elected by the citizens of Saugatuck, to make decisions on their behalf, frankly. And I've been listening to the constituents in great detail. They all were more than hopefully able to watch this. I personally did not see anything that, was suddenly a red flag for anyone. I think they all interviewed very well. So once again, I'm a bit perplexed by the sort of acting like this was somehow done in a vacuum. I think it was an incredibly transparent process.
Okay. Gregory?
I want Saugatuck to succeed. That's what I want. And Ryan is going to get the same amount of respect that I would also give Will and that I would also give Michael if they were in that position. That level of respect wouldn't change at all. Although I do respect Ryan for taking up the ball, and coming into a time where we really needed him. And again, he's going to have my utmost support. Nothing but a vacuum. I'm not picking up crumbs or anything like that. But I do want to stress that, I just thought that, we did have 30 days. I think giving me a little bit more time, maybe all of us a little time, maybe it could have changed your minds. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know where you stand, Scott. I don't know where you guys stand on everything. I know that you said that you had that candidate, that you voted for, but maybe if you looked back, you might have saw something different. But I would have liked to have had a little bit more time. I didn't vote no because I don't think that Ryan is capable of doing a great job with the support of the council, giving him the tools and keeping that communication going so that he can grow. I have total faith in him. I have faith in all of our candidates. And also finally, Memorial Day parades. I hope I see everybody there. We've got 9 o'clock in Saugatuck, but I want to tell everybody, it's usually 10 o'clock in Douglas, but they're giving them an extra half hour. So if you sleep in, you can go at 10:30 and see the great Saugatuck High School parade and our great little small town. It really is a small town parade, our Memorial Day parade, as you
Mhm.
know. Are you going to be marching in it, Scott?
Yes, yes, I will.
Happy
I-
to see
I
you
will.
in it. Yeah.
And so will my 85-year-old father.
Oh, good.
Nice.
We have-
Logan, if
I
you
won't be carrying a flag this year, but.
Yeah.
What a
Logan?
day and what a process.
have.
I would just like to thank the candidates for coming in today. I think the interviews are an extremely important part of that process. Which is why I would have liked to see what other people think about them, and we didn't have that opportunity. I don't think that's wildly perplexing. But I'm extremely excited for the future of Saugatuck. And I think that we are making a lot of progress, and it's going to be really good. And there's a lot of work to do. And I know that Ryan will be extremely diligent, and with our support will succeed in this role. So I'm excited.
I just want to say a few things. My vote was in favor of Ryan Cummins because I believe the staff supported him. We've heard from staff. I also heard from a number of constituents. There weren't a lot of people here to listen. I mean, that does happen on occasion, but I don't think we would have changed. I know I wouldn't have changed my mind. It sounded like others, the majority of council wouldn't have changed their mind. And I also do know that some of these folks are applying to other jobs. As you notice, we would have had 4 people, but a gentleman wasn't able to interview with us because he took a job in Zealand Township. And I just want these other folks to have an opportunity to continue looking for other jobs in other communities, knowing that we have such a qualified individual that we were so lucky. He was almost snatched away from us, but he chose to stay with us and apply for this position. And he wants to lead our city. And I think he's going to do a fantastic job. And I just appreciate everything he has done for us over the last few months. So with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. I'll second.
All those in favor, say yes.
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 Adjourned.